Chapter 587, Bitter Struggle. Chapter 587, Bitter Struggle. He got this treasure when he descended to this world. It was unpredictably good, bringing uncountable advantages. At the critical moment, the blood vein ring always surprised him, converting danger to safety. Today, since his life power was drained rapidly, he was extremely anxious, worrying about the battle of the four heaven flames. The world-extinguishing thunder flame was too powerful. From what his hollow soul had observed, the union of 9 serenities soul-devouring flame, the ice-cold flame, and the earth flame couldn't oppress it. With this trend, not long afterward, the 9 serenities soul-devouring flame would empty out his life energy. This was the first time he had regretted fusing with the 9 serenities soul-devouring flame. The feeling of having a heaven flame grabbing the neck was really aggrievedly helpless. He wanted to overturn the bad situation, but he couldn't find a solution. At the critical time, he remembered the blood vein ring. The divine sword Sky Destroyer taken out of the chasm battlefield was a god-level treasure, but the blood vein ring could pocket it. As the sword stayed idle inside the blood vein ring, it meant this ring could subdue the god-level secret weapon. It was the same with the 9 serenities soul-devouring flames and the ice-cold flames cases. The blood vein ring's power could oppress and guide them. Eventually, they had to surrender. From this point, the blood vein ring was much stronger than the Sky Destroyer and the 9 serenities soul-devouring flame. Shi Yang was struck. Pulling himself together, he gathered the energy of his consciousness into a bunch of life, then jumped into the blood vein ring. "I need help." The ring on his finger sparkled with blood light. That light was like water murmuring, covering the entire ring. Beams of strange energy overflowed from the exquisite but complex patterns on the ring. Divine aura of the ring gathered and increased fiercely. It became apparent from time to time. Thump, thump, thump. Rumbling sounds came from the ring, which sounded like the vigorous heartbeat and the rumbling of a drum. A vague thought shot out from the ring, entering the deep area of Shi Yang's host soul. Shi Yang's eyes brightened. He could feel that the thought from the ring had settled in the center of his host soul. It was like a bunch of light energy searching the memory seal of the host soul as it was receiving what Shi Yang had experienced recently. Ear-splitting waves of soul resonance reverberated in his host soul. Shi Yang was trembling hard as the energies in his body were rioting like beasts escaped from their chains, furiously getting out of the cage. Soul energy of the host soul was vibrating at the same frequency. It seemed to be sublimated. Flows of soul energies were like they had been gifted a new vitality, surging robustly like boiling water. In the marvelous space, thunder and lightning were swaggering in the sky. Lightning strikes as big as a rock column were flying everywhere, packing the entire place. Flames burst from the silver fire sea by the 9 serenities soul-devouring flame was struck into ashes. Its power scattered rapidly. The 9 serenities soul-devouring flame was putting forth everything to counter. It condensed and shelled flows of soul-destroying will, bravely fighting the lightning. Although they were all heaven flames, the 9 serenities soul-devouring flame was ranked lower than the world-extinguishing thunder flame, and its life was 1 grade lower than the other. Both of them had consumed much of their energies, but the world-extinguishing thunder flame could subdue it easily. Without the soul power from Shi Yang, it should have been defeated earlier, and it couldn't continue gathering power to fight the world-extinguishing thunder flame. Although the ice-cold flame and the earth flame were giving it assistance, these 2 heaven flames weren't strong enough. The union of the 3 of them couldn't gain the upper hand. The silver fire sea under the bombarding of waves of lightning strikes was about to drain. All of a sudden, a sharp soul power appeared from somewhere far away like a spear piercing through space. The small, handsome face inside the silver fire sea was thrilled. The sharp soul power tore the sky and descended into the silver fire sea. After a surging wave splashed, Shi Yang's hollow soul appeared in this space once again. This time the hollow soul was covered in layers of energy. In the silver fire sea, it was intact under the furious lightning strikes. "How could you get here?" The 9 serenities soul-devouring flame sent him a happy thought. Shi Yang's hollow soul cracked a silent smile. "You don't need to care about that. I will unite with you to drain the lightning power." From the horizon of the nothingness, countless lightning strikes interweaved, creating a phantom of a giant ancient god. He observed things under his feet disdainfully. Thunder and lightning reverberated from that giant god, shooting to the ground. Shi Yang faced up the sky. His hollow soul was condensing energy, then shooting clusters of grey light from his palms. Grey light clusters gathered and then condensed into the shapes of the 5 devils in his sea of consciousness. They slowly emerged from the silver fire sea. Desperate, fear, bloodthirsty, greed, and resentment were the 5 flows of negative emotion exuded from the ferocious appearance of the 5 devils. These 5 flows surrounded Shi Yang's hollow soul, created a pentagonal seal. 5 flows of negative emotions connected to Shi Yang's hollow soul. At that moment, the hollow soul had an incomparable surging soul fluctuation in this strange space. Shi Yang's hollow soul strongly drove the silver fire sea to surge furiously. The sea used to be subdued, but now it was turbulent again. Big waves rose to the sky, releasing the immense soul-destroying energy. The god thunder and lightning struck from the horizon of the nothingness had been added with pure will. But when they came near the sea fire, big waves swarmed over, rolling them away and destroying them all. Big waves didn't give the lightning a chance to escape. In the fire sea, Shi Yang's hollow soul was circled by the pentagonal seal formed by the 5 devils. He lifted his head to look at the giant phantom of the ancient god in the horizon of the nothingness. All of a sudden, divine light condensed by the 5 negative soul wills including desperation, fear, bloodlust, greed, and resentment shot out of the hollow soul's eyes. It then turned into a light shield to receive the big lightning strikes, then directed them backward to the center of the world-extinguishing thunder flame's original will. It was like the sky was falling. Glorious rays of light bloomed out from the horizon. Fierce energy movements rose the big waves. Sky collapsed, and the nothingness shattered. Countless beams of different kinds of energies had their trajectories changed, fluttering disorderly. The giant ancient god phantom was condensed by the original will of the world-extinguishing thunder flame. It was shattered from the impact with the divine light of the negative will. The phantom was broken like shattered crystal, shooting over the sky like a meteor shower, as beautiful as the most glorious firework performance. Flows of god thunder and lightning struck from the sky, but the soul will added in it was destroyed, which misdirected the attack. They didn't aim at the 3 heaven flames. When the fire sea and the 2 rivers recognized the dramatic change in the horizon, they seized the opportunity to condense the power and soared up to the sky. Icicles, ice monsters, the fiery scarlet flame, and the soul-destroying silver light pierced through the massive lightning strikes. They were like 3 sharp swords thrusting into the original will of the world-extinguishing thunder flame. So many forces were taking care of the ancient god phantom, pushing it to the corner. It couldn't resist any longer. The phantom was as though it was torn apart by invisible hands, turning into misshaped figures. The god thunder and lightning in it were all scattered. They couldn't bind to each other like a rope again. Shi Yang's hollow soul was cold and ruthless. There was no beam of affection in his eyes while he was gazing at the horizon, pushing his force further. The negative soul will that came from the 5 devil was manipulated by his host soul, guiding the other forces to destroy the world-extinguishing thunder flame's original will in the sky. The fire sea and the 2 rivers were situated in much lower terrain. Seizing the chance, they urged all of their powers rocketing to the sky. At the same time, they were gradually floating towards the world-extinguishing thunder flame's original will. Despicable human. You dare break my good business? I'll make you consigned to eternal damnation. The brutal and crazy thought of the world-extinguishing thunder flame expanded in the void. Just like the ancient god snarling indignantly, it shot directly towards Shi Yang's soul. This soul will moved swiftly in the sky. It condensed hundreds of lightning strikes, like a lightning dragon that wanted to destroy all creatures, and rumblingly attacked him. The deep power that could open the sky and slit the earth emerged from the giant light column created by lightning. It was a natural power that only creatures living in the antiquity time could understand. It was so powerful that it could take the will of resistance from creatures away, which created a mood of being willing to get burned and destroyed. The 3 heaven flames were stopped in that ancient, powerful will. Their powers became chaotic. The 5 devils circling Shi Yang's hollow soul were also affected. They suddenly shrank into 5 grey light spots, as big as a walnut. The soul will assistance that came from the 5 devils was cut off. So, Shi Yang couldn't sense furthermore. That brutal lightning column had crushed all kinds of lights. The fire sea and the ice wall hindering its way were smashed as easy as breaking a dried tree branch. It was powerful like a storm, as it struck out invincibly. The eyes of Shi Yang's hollow soul were like ice sabers, with a strange red light sparkling indefinitely in the pupils. With such soul will, you dare to interfere the destined battle of the high-grade living beings like us? Your soul will disappear forever in the river of history. The thought of the world-extinguishing thunder flame reverberated in the entire space, tearing people's souls and thrusting towards people's hearts. The 3 heaven flames seemed to be tied down under this will. They couldn't even muster an attack. Master, this is the world-extinguishing thunder light of the world-extinguishing thunder flame. It's the overflowing of his original will. In this world, besides some scarce substances, no soul could bear it directly. This war is ours. Your soul shouldn't enter this place. The 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame addressed Shi Yang its master for the first time. In its eyes, perhaps Shi Yang was about to fall here. There should be no soul of any living beings in this space except for the heaven flames. If he dared to go against the rules of the destined battle, he would be punished. The ice-cold flame and the earth flame sent him their worried thoughts. As they could sense the danger Shi Yang was about to bear, they were all anxious. The world-extinguishing thunder light struck down furiously, covering Shi Yang's hollow soul and burning it. The 3 heaven flames were desperate. However, inside the world-extinguishing thunder light, a blood spot was still sparkling, as beautiful as a ruby. Chapter 588, Cracks in the Blue Dome of Heaven. Chapter 588, Cracks in the Blue Dome of Heaven. Shi Yang's hollow soul perished. The world-extinguishing thunder light could burn all kinds of soul powers. The thunder light even pierced through space to reach his host soul. Patterned light rippled from the blood vein ring like small streams soaking his host soul, covering it in layers. Under such care, his soul was strengthened with so many unbreakable barriers. The original power of the world-extinguishing thunder flame was cut off. It couldn't break through more layers of defensive barriers. In that peculiar space, the world-extinguishing thunder light expanded immensely, illuminating the entire fire sea created by the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame. Under the thunder light, even the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame's original soul power was running out quickly. Only a blood-red light dot wasn't affected. It was still sparkling gloriously, as if it were the most shining star in the sky. Inside the blood-red light dot, a flow of Shi Yang's thought condensed, turning into another hollow soul. Shi Yang had created the connection with this space once again. Impossible. The world-extinguishing thunder flame hissed and snarled in the void. Thunder and lightning were moving crazily, as a massive willpower heavily pressed down rumblingly from the sky. The blood-red light dot remained. Shi Yang's hollow soul hid inside, facing up the sky. His face was cold like an icicle as he grinned. This was the power of the blood vein ring. He didn't know why this power wasn't afraid of the world-extinguishing flaming light, but he knew for sure that the blood vein ring was a divine tool, and the spirit or the soul inside was mysteriously unpredictable, with an unimaginable divine ability. With the aid of the blood vein ring, his soul was undying, and he could maintain his sound mind. The acupuncture points all over his body were swelling as the negative energy rolled like an unceasingly surging river towards his sea of consciousness. When the negative energy was seething, Shi Yang felt so painful he wanted to cut it off. However, he just gritted his teeth and endured. When the 5 devils received the torrential negative energy as 5 grey light dots, they materialized once again, appearing around Shi Yang's hollow soul. The pentagonal seal was formed again, resuming the barrier that locked his hollow soul. Shi Yang's mentality, spirit, and soul fused as one, leading the 5 devils' willpower. A patterned light halo expanded inside the world-extinguishing thunder light. The world-extinguishing thunder light shattered like a broken mirror while light sparkled everywhere. The aura of the ancient power from the world-extinguishing thunder flame fractured bit by bit. Its soul power was consumed by a big part. Within a short period, it couldn't gather enough energy for another attack. There shouldn't be a situation that I can't control. The world-extinguishing thunder flame thundered crazily. This was the first time it showed its fear. The flame seemed to realize something really terrible. It twisted, struggling in the air in an attempt to take control of the situation again. The three heaven flames burst out at the same time. Their powers struck straight up to the sky, furiously entangling with the world-extinguishing thunder flame's original consciousness, and wore out each other. Shi Yang's hollow soul was as firm as a rock. It continued to absorb the negative soul energy of the five devils to push the power further. After an unknown period, Shi Yang found that this magical space started to collapse little by little, as though this illusion was being cut off. Dazzling rays of light bloomed. Those rays were like sharp sabers, slashing through the space wall. Space slits appeared as the space power hovered. Havoc spread around. Suddenly, a divine light spread out from Shi Yang's eyes. He was scrutinizing the light sword wrecking the space. His bright eyes reflected the space lightsaber's trajectory. Suddenly a lightsaber slashed down directly on his hollow soul. Shi Yang's hollow soul trembled, then absorbed the light sword like a sponge sucking water. The wonderful feeling of being able to control space swelled in his heart. This miraculous but chaotic space suddenly became familiar and lovely to him. All lightsabers in the space seemed to turn into his soul's tentacles, creating a magical connection. His thought flickered, and his soul focused on locking a space lightsaber. A marvelous thing happened. A space lightsaber, which was cutting the space around it, suddenly stopped. Gradually, it changed and transformed into an extension of Shi Yang's hollow soul. Shi Yang felt touched. A foreign soul fluctuation was created between him and that lightsaber. The phantom created by space power had become a clone of his soul, which he could control easily. Shi Yang was thrilled. He started to gather his mental power to supplement each space lightsaber. Shortly, 10 clones made of space power stood next to him. They carried the extremely sharp space power, striking towards the original soul of the world-extinguishing thunder flame in the dome of the sky. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The world-extinguishing thunder flame's ancient god phantom was cut off. Each part was sent to a different space, which didn't leave it a chance to gather again. The three heaven flames shot out at the same time towards the original seal of the world-extinguishing thunder flame. Light interweaved in the sky as the world-extinguishing thunder flame's original seal was crushed. It then surged like a tsunami before it was separated. Shi Yang continued to create more space sabers, using his soul to manipulate them to destroy the world-extinguishing thunder flame's original seal. Crack, crack, crack. Space collapsed completely, becoming a space of nothingness and chaos. The world-extinguishing thunder flame's original seal was cut into pieces, sending to different spaces, which cut off their connection. Over the shady firmament old mound above Shi Yang's head was a light performance. Such a marvel couldn't be described enough with words. The war devil, ghost hunter, devouring gold silkworm, king of demonic insect, and the Holy Spirit God lifted their heads to watch the wonderful fireworks above their heads. They seemed to forget everything else. Several thousand li away from Shi Yang, Rya paled on a broken gravestone. Blood trickled from her mouth. Her bright eyes suddenly sparkled as she looked at the strange phenomenon above her head. She didn't know what was going on over there. In the old tomb, the two sages of the Ghostmark clan were fighting with Lei Mo and Ari Po. They suddenly felt the tremendous change of heaven and earth. They all felt terrified, looking at the dim void above their heads. Their eyes showed their extreme fear. Lei Mo's team of the Spirit Realm warriors was bewildered. They stopped fighting, looking at the sky. Not only underground, but the situation on the surface of the shady firmament old mound was also the same. The sun, the moon, and the stars all appeared at the same time in the sky. Countless dazzling light dots exploded. Space was torn open, revealing many cracks. From those cracks, ori of powers that didn't belong to the Grace mainland were diffusing. Under such phenomenon, many peak experts of the Grace mainland felt scared, as they could sense the strange anomaly of the power in their bodies. This is. The sage who used to strike a fatal attack on Shi Yang shouted. But he was terrified, not knowing what to say. Cracks of the blue dome of heaven, the void lock was crushed. Ha ha ha. God help us. 10 ancient clans can finally see the sun again. Clansmen sealed in different spaces can go home now. Tears lingered in the two sages' eyes as they were watching the phenomenon in the sky. After a while, they laughed cheerily. Dead Soul Mountain Range. A green light dot appeared above the ruin of the Spirit Potion Valley. It then slowly enlarged, creating the Dead Soul's evil lair. Dark Spirit Clan's members emerged from the evil lair, appearing above the Spirit Potion Valley. They were sensing the change of the world in silence. Cracks of the blue dome of heaven. The barriers are broken. Our refugees will know the way home soon. A strong clansman of the Dark Spirit Clan had tears all over his face as he was sinking into his thought. Endless sea. The heaven gate that led to seven-layered underworld and the fourth demon area shattered in just a blink of an eye. Human warriors guarding at the gate of the seven-layered underworld and the fourth demon area perished. Skies above seven-layered underworld and the four demon area appeared with many cracks, and they were expanding. The sky cracked open. The sun, moon, and stars appeared at the same time in the sky, illuminating the seven-layered and the fourth demon area. Experts of the dark clans and demon clans were watching the change in the sky above their heads, all cheerful and excited. In the north of the fourth demon area was a boundless dark green area, where the sky was high and green. The forest there was cold year-around. When the demon clan's warriors came there, they would feel the barrier barricading the north that they couldn't go through. Today, an area was torn apart. The green sky was ripped open by invisible hands. A hotshot of the demon clan staying near there saw a thick devil aura diffusing torrentially. When the dark green barrier disappeared completely, he saw many demonic beasts that could only be seen in old scriptures. Each of them was as big as a mountain, and they all had intimidating auras. Some people were riding the beasts. All of them had the aura of things from the ancient times. Deep under the dark sea in the seven-layered underworld, in an area which was 100,000 li undersea, there was a barrier made of an unknown material. It was melting slowly. Dark chi rose turbulently from the dark sea. Bubbles broke, releasing thick dark chi. The three Yama kings of the underworld headed toward the dark sea from other places. They were shivering in thrill. Seals of the bottom three layers of the seven-layered underworld are broken. Yama King Abi faced the sky and thundered, as his aura shot up to the sky like a furious rainbow. I wonder whether any of our great seniors survive in the three bottom layers of underworld. It's been so many years. Yama King Hei Tian sank into his thoughts. He muttered while whining. The strenuous life of our tribe has come to an end, finally. Yama King Hades laughed with the clansmen behind him. The three layers of underworld that were concealed are the root of our dark clan. If our seniors there are still alive, our dark clan will control this world once again. Most importantly, we will have the chance to learn the lost dark secret techniques of our tribe. We will have the power of the dark god. Strange phenomena also happened in the other heaven gates that led to foreign lands. The heaven gates connected the Grace mainland and many other regions were shattered too. From outside the Grace mainland, the barriers between the mainland and the other strange spaces were all broken shortly. Experts of the divine Great Land, who knew the secrets of the antiquity time, paled when they watched the change of the sky. Their faces turned ash-gray. Chapter 589, Burn the Soul. Chapter 589, Burn the Soul. Shi Yang didn't know that the world out there had an earth-shaking change because of him. His soul got back to his body. He lifted his head to look at the beautiful light like rainbows above him. He felt the strange movement of earth and heaven aura around him. His sea of consciousness was spaciously extended. Flows of space power poured into his sea of consciousness from that magical space. They rooted in his sea of consciousness, entangled and grew together with each flow of his soul consciousness. It was a misty area in his pupils. He was still sinking in that wonderful scene created by that space change. He wanted to hold on to that space from the time it started to collapse until it detached completely. He was looking for some meanings of space power. This was the experience he could meet by chance but could never wish for. To warriors cultivating space power, experience the great change of space was like reading a precious scripture, which lectured the nature of space. This is extremely precious to him. He sank into that area. Gradually, the earth-shaking change of the void above his head disappeared. Everything restored as usual. However, earth and heaven energy in the underground of the shady firmament old mound had an inexplicably miraculous change due to the current occurrence. Spiritual chi here became thicker, and the way they were circling also changed. Currently, earth and heaven spiritual chi here with different forms of energy blended all together that warriors could sense but couldn't use them. It was strange that those energy forms and the beams of light with different kinds of powers Shi Yang saw in the wonderful space were similar. It was like the energies of that space suddenly flooded the Grace mainland. The great change of the void above his head disappeared completely. 3 glorious flames cut the space and appeared in front of him. The 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame flashed then sank into Shi Yang's host soul, where it would use his soul power to restore its vitality. The ice-cold flame and the earth flame turned into 2 small flames, releasing the distinctive energy fluctuations of the heaven flames. War Devil and Ghost Hunter scattered to guard him in case anything would happen all of a sudden. Deep in Shi Yang's pupils were sharp space blades. From his spot, he seemed to have connections with many other fine spaces. He gave people a vague feeling, which was hard to capture with their eyes or soul consciousness. The wounds on his body were all healed. There was no open cut on his body now. He was vigorously healthy. Dense earth and heaven spiritual chi floated near him like the thick mist. It slowly moved toward him. Energy light dots flew around like lighting bugs, proactively getting into his body, absorbing into his internal organs and limbs. They gradually refined in his body, becoming part of his blood and flesh. Long afterward, his eyes shone like precious gems. His aura rocketed. Space cracks like willow branches opened around him. Space power that looked like gossamer strongly overflowed into his body. He was still sinking in his magical status of comprehending. He didn't notice the changes of the world out there. The gathering point of the Ghost Mark clan in the shady firmament old mound. 2 sages of the Ghost Mark clan were laughing crazily. Their draft power was being restored more quickly under the new torrential heaven and earth aura. God favors us. Clear tears lingered in his eyes. The complex tattoos on his body like the vessel system started to move. His aura changed shortly. Now it was like the immeasurable ocean. A wave of fierce soul fluctuations twirled and expanded from him as the core. Ari Po and Lei Mo were standing in the front. They felt their sea of consciousness was torn apart by a tornado. At the same time, their flows of soul consciousness were so heavy they couldn't move them smoothly. Soul dark exterminating spell. A sage spat out 4 words of the ghost line written charm with a strange melody. The 4 written charms sparkled like precious gems. Glorious light shot out grumblingly. Hundreds of light beams entangled like gossamer in the crystal clear written charms. They were forming a vague but mysterious and complicated. The written charms stormed forward. 4 tremendous soul fluctuations surged, darting toward Ari Po and Lei Mo's team. Ari Po, Lei Mo, and the others were petrified under the intimidating energy of the 4 written charms. They stood blankly with dull expressions on their faces. 4 written charm detached then drilled toward Ari Po, Lei Mo, Gong Sun Dao and Zhua Hui, hitting their chest. These 4 were like they got the body-fixing technique. They didn't inch as all powers in their bodies were sealed. Even their souls were confined, and they couldn't urge their thought, either. At this moment, the other sage started to perform his deadly attack. Yi Xiong, Zhu Yi, and Yu Ying paled. They felt distressed, but they didn't dare to linger, immediately retreated. The storage rings on Yi Xiong's fingers opened at once. More than 10 secret treasures flew out. All carried massive energy with magical effects. They burst off instantly in front of Yi Xiong, created unbreakable attacking stream energy. Firefly insects dare vie with the bright moon. In the void, a fabric sheet full of green ghost scripture unfolded, covering all the energy Yi Xiong had released. The sheet then twisted and squeezed. Many mysterious and complicated ghost scriptures moved like an angry river, releasing crazy and brutal energy fluctuations. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Attacks by numerous secret treasures were crushed inside the sheet. Yi Xiong's bones shook. Blood dripped from his face, his hair disheveled. He looked like a demon with such appearance. He got hurt badly. Go. I got your back. Yi Xiong gritted his teeth as though he was a wild beast backed in the corner. He wanted to risk his life. In his eyes was a place of white snow. Yi Xiong's glabella cracked. Drops of dark blood were squeezed out, rolling down his nose to his mouth. Hurrah! He screamed wildly. Yi Xiong spurt out a dark purple bead. The bead then took in the drop of blood from his glabella, sparkling with formidable soul fluctuation. There was a tiny man inside the bead. He was swinging his arms busily as if he was controlling something. That little man was Yi Xiong's soul seal. When the precious bead appeared, waves of soul energy rippled upward, covering the space in front of Yi Xiong. Old Yi! Zhu Yi's eyes almost cracked. Tears lingered in his sockets, his face painful and sorrowful. He knew that precious bead was a level 7 sacred treasure with Yi Xiong's soul seal, which could create an extremely firm soul fortress. At this moment, Yi Xiong took this bead out and poured his soul seal into it as he knew he couldn't escape death this time. He could only use his soul to urge the bead and have the last battle of his life. Move. Go. Yi Xiong's voice came from the little man inside the bead. He was scared and anxious. Yu Ying's eyes reddened. She clenched her jaw, attempting to risk her life, too. Go. You must tell the sect what happened here. Yi Xiong screamed crazily. It's happened in the Spirit Treasure Clan. As an elder, you don't want to see our clan destroy, right? While screaming, the tiny human in that bead was crying as if he was burning. His soul power ceased quickly. Layers or energy barriers expanded from the bead, creating an unyielding soul wall, blocking that sage and his dangerous attacks. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. At the place where soul attacks impact, smoke evaporated. After each flow of smoke exuded, YX's soul seal would get 1 grade smaller. Soon, Yi Xiong's soul seal had reduced half. If you won't go, you will fall here with me. This is a long-term calamity. You must come back alive. You must keep the inheritance of our sect. Yi Xiong roared like a beast. Zhu Yi shook as if there was a bucket of water pouring on him. He woke up. Go. We're going now. Zhu Yi cried. Tears rolled on his face, but he forced himself to turn away. He urged the secret treasure in his body and escaped. Yi hesitated. Her eyes reddened as she said firmly, Yi Ji, we will take revenge for you. Then, moonlight bloomed from her body, she flew away as fast as light. Ari Po, Lei Mo, and the others were fixed by the soul dark exterminating spell. They couldn't move an inch. Vitality in their bodies ceased like a sapling was uprooted. Gradually, they didn't breathe anymore. It's time to erase human race. The Ghost Mark clan's sage muttered to himself. He swung his hand, and the yin-written charm scripture flew out, covering the spirit realm experts Ari Po, Lei Mo, and the others. Under the invincible power of the yin-written charm scripture, Ari Po, Lei Mo, and their teams were like dust scattering with the wind. The yin-written charm scripture glowed. The mysterious yin chi seemed to be recovered a lot. It was floating above the group of the Ghost Mark clan, scattering some drops. The clansmen were crazily happy. They opened their mouths greedily to receive those drops. Their auras had gradually been restored. Those two. A sage frowned. He then released his soul consciousness to sense for a while, then shook his head begrudgingly. He used the escape technique. He paid the big price of hurting himself to get away. His tens of thousands of li away. With this far distance, it's hard to kill them. Too bad, the human force can be strengthened a little bit. It's all right, said the sage who was holding the yin-written charm scripture. When the space cracks appear, yin chi will flood in gradually. Our clan will recover shortly. What we should do now is not to chase after them. We should try to connect with the expelled clans to conspire our big undertaking. Yeah, it's true. Besides the Ghost Mark clan, the Demon clan, the Monster clan, the Giant clan, the Dark Spirit clan, the Corpse clan, and the Sea clan will appear here. We should get there earlier so as our benefits will be greater later. It's been so many years. I thought that we would have died because of the world-extinguishing thunder flame. Now we can see the sun again. God still favor us. Hey, Where's the world-extinguishing thunder flame? I don't see it here. I almost forget it. Let me try to search for it. Chapter 590, Aftermath. Chapter 590, Aftermath. Zhu Yi and Yu Ying had run away for over 10,000 li. However, they were still in the underground. They hadn't reached the surface yet. Hiding in the area of phosphorus ghost mushrooms, Zhu Yi was as pale as white paper. Blood trickled from the corners of his mouth, and he was taking in pellets to recover. He tried to adjust his breathing, then took out the soundstone, trying to contact the others. Zhu Yi was using secret treasures to flee away underground instantly. To activate these treasures, he had to squeeze all of his essence qi. When he had no beam of energy in his body, the treasures would take him away. At this moment, Zhu Yi had drained his power. He was in a perilous situation, and had to use more secret treasures to defend himself while using the pellets to restore his power and search for help. He didn't know that the two sages of the Ghost Mark clan didn't pursue him, so he was trying his best to recover fast. The sound stone in his hand sparkled with strange light. Zhu Yi poured a thought into it, screaming using his soul consciousness. Where are you, guys? I'm not far from you. How are you? Yu Ying answered immediately. Her voice was feeble, which indicated that she was exhausted. Certainly, she had been hurt too. Usually, the escape technique that could jump more than 10,000 li in just a blink would cause damage to the users. Zhu Yi's case and Yu Ying's case were the same. Don't rush. Contact Yun Xiu and tell her not to get back here. Zhu Yi's eyes reddened. He hurried to advise the other. I can't find her now. I don't know where she's gone. Perhaps she's too far from us, so she couldn't receive the thought from the soundstone. Do you have any news of Shiyang? No. Zhu Yi's face darkened. He felt regret, while sorrow filled his heart. He kept silent for a long time. Before Shiyang had left, he had triggered Ari Po, Lei Mo, and their teams to make them risk their lives against the Ghost Mark clan. At the same time, he had cared about them, asking them to leave that place. However, Zhu Yi and Yi Xiong didn't value his words. They had hesitated, and then decided to stay and fight. And they had to bear a painful aftermath. Lei Mo and Ari Po died. Yi Xiong had burnt his soul, which wasn't different from getting both his soul and body destroyed. Under the imposing soul power of the two sages, they had only one choice, which was to hurt themselves to flee away. Now, Zhu Yi and Yu Ying were feeling a deep regret. They regretted that they didn't listen to Shiyang's advice, that they shouldn't have been greedy for the magical yin written charm scripture and the world-extinguishing thunder flame. And now, they had fallen into such an aftermath. After they had their failure, they recalled Shiyang's broad vision. They couldn't help but want to contact him. Unfortunately, Shiyang's sound stone seemed to be broken. They couldn't track down his signal. This gave them another worry. Hey! As Zhu Yi was sinking in his regret, he heard Yu Ying's surprised scream. Zhu Yi was shaken, asking immediately, "What problem? Did you find something?" The soul-sensing stone you gave me suddenly glowed. Yu Ying wasn't so sure. I'll check to see who is that. Hold on. Okay. Shiyang. He's near me. Zhu Yi's eyes brightened. Thoughts crossed his head as he said abruptly, "You go get him. After I've recovered, I'll get there." Okay. There were many yin cold plants growing inside the grey mist, together with ruined gravestones and ancient corpses. Yu Ying took a deep breath, then urged the moonlight power she had accumulated for so many years. She was holding a ring that looked like a silver moon, walking towards a specific direction. At this moment, Yu Ying didn't have any disdainful thoughts towards Shiyang. Quite the contrary, she suddenly respected him. At the critical moment, he was determined enough to retreat. He wasn't greedy for treasures. Such wise moves coming from a junior made Yu Ying feel shame. She didn't know it was due to the Nine Serenities' soul-devouring flame that Shiyang had such precise vision of the whole picture. She assumed that Shiyang was wise and could foresee the future events from the current details. She started to respect him. When she sauntered towards Shiyang's general direction, Yu Ying's face became more respectful as she thought what to say when she met him. She was shy and worried if Shiyang would mock them for what they'd done. Young talented men like Shi Yang were all arrogant, and they didn't want to obey the elders. When they talked, they often didn't leave the way out. The terrible failure this time was because they didn't listen to his advice. As she thought about the mockery manners Shi Yang would show her, her steps became heavier. However, she had to go there. Her condition was bad. Since she had taken risks and used the escape technique, she had to consume a big part of her energy. Her soul consciousness was damaged too. If she met a stranger with a profound realm, or the Ghost Mark clan's clansmen chasing after her, she couldn't use the escape technique one more time. Only death would welcome her then. Yu Ying didn't have a good impression of Shi Yang. However, in the current circumstances, she had no other choice around. After Yu Ying had crossed through a transition of yin-cold floras while wearing a complicated complexion, she found Shi Yang. War Devil, King of Demonic Insects, the Devouring Gold Silkworm, the Holy Spirit God, the Ghost Hunter, and the two Heaven Flames were the most loyal guards, securing Shi Yang in the center or their barricade. Yu Ying peeked at him and shivered instantly. Her eyes showed that she was disbelieving. Her bright eyes gazed at Shi Yang, who was panting heavily with his open mouth. This was scary. At this moment, the force Shi Yang had could kill any third sky of Spirit Realm warrior. She knew that Shi Yang had the War Devil. Yu Ying sensed for a while and found that the auras from the Ghost Hunter and the King of Demonic Insects weren't weaker than her, a third sky of Spirit Realm expert. And, she didn't dare to sense the Holy Spirit God and the two Heaven Flames, so she didn't know how strange they were. But, she could confirm that since these three aliens could stay at the same spot with the Ghost Hunter, the King of Demonic Insects, and the War Devil, they should be absolutely formidable. Especially the ice-cold flame. This cold flame had a freezing aura, which told her that it was ranked number 8 among the 9 Heaven Flames, the ice-cold flame, the mysterious Heaven Flame. Yu Ying was scared. She smacked her tongue discreetly, her eyes bright. Finally, she understood why Yun Hao, the cult master of the Radiant God cult, had valued this young man that much. For his initiation, he had summoned all the elders. At that time, she had looked down on him. Just like the other elders, she thought that Yun Hao just wanted to make a small thing big, and they assumed that Yun Hao had favored this young man too much. But now, she didn't think like that anymore. She admired Yun Hao, and she didn't have any doubt or objection. The force Shi Yang revealed here was enough to fight the 7 elders together. What was this concept? As Yu Ying got it clear, she was totally convinced. A pair of brutal monster eyes gazed at her, while a flow of murderous aura slapped her face. Yu Ying was scared, and her face changed dramatically. She stood still, not daring to move. Ghost Hunter strolled towards her alone. It had tiptoed a little bit, as if it was afraid that it would bother Shi Yang. After it walked more than 100 meters away from Shi Yang, the monster accelerated, dashing towards Yu Ying. Yu Ying's face was bitter, but she couldn't cry. She didn't have any power left, so she had to come here to find Shi Yang for help. However, right when she saw her, a humanoid beast had placed its eyes on her. This was an intimidating beast, and with her current condition, she couldn't do anything to counter. Of course, Ghost Hunter wouldn't care about her. Letting Rya run away had irritated the Ghost Hunter. Seeing another woman sneak into the area, the monster wanted to use Yu Ying to vent out its anger. Shi Yang. As Yu Ying saw the oncoming danger, she couldn't help but pitch her voice. Shi Yang was sinking in his strange status. Hearing that pitiful call, his brows convulsed as he sent a thought away. The Ghost Hunter savagely stormed towards Yu Ying to attack her. Dark Qi and Devil Qi twirled around it, as the beast shook the bell to kill her. That great change of heaven and earth wasn't a good thing to mankind, but the Ghost Hunter could earn some benefits from it. It could feel the power in its body increasing little by little, while its speed of accumulating Dark Qi and Devil Qi was accelerating. Also, its soul fluctuation became more fluent and flexible. Yu Ying's face was sorrowful. Seeing the Ghost Hunter coming, she tried to urge the scarce remaining energy to counter the beast for a while. Right at this moment, the Ghost Hunter halted in the air as if it were frozen, not moving an inch. The humanized pupils of the Ghost Hunter showed its suspicions. It secretly sent its soul thought to Shi Yang. After it received the confirmation, The beast begrudgingly returned and stood next to the war devil again. You should wait. He needs more time. The ice-cold flame had bounced for a while, then shot a soul fluctuation towards Yu Ying to send her a clear thought. Yu Ying was astounded. She looked at the ice-cold flame. Are you explaining to me? Yeah, he's comprehending the power Upanishad. Currently, he can't talk with you, the ice-cold flame continued. You can wait here, or if you don't have time, you can leave. The ice-cold flame and Shi Yang had a deep soul connection, so it knew the relation between Shi Yang and Yu Ying. If Shi Yang didn't ask the ghost hunter to kill her, it would explain the situation to her. Yu Ying received the thought from the ice-cold flame the second time. Now, she could confirm that the spirit that had sent her message was the heaven flame. She was filled with surprise, and wanted to inquire further. However, seeing the ice-cold flame didn't want to react to her, she could only be wise and keep her mouth shut. She waited in silence, with the hope that Shi Yang would wake up soon. She had many suspicions in her heart. Elder Yu, how are you? I'm coming right away. Suddenly, the sound stone in her hand transmitted Ju Yi's thought. He seemed to be cheered up. You should wait for a while to avoid unnecessary troubles. Yu Ying was surprised for a while and then sent him thought. It's a little bit strange here. When you arrive, don't hurry. Better to tiptoe. What happened? Shi Yang wanted to attack you? No. Wait until you get here. You will know. Yu Ying forced a smile. Chapter 591, Mediocre. Chapter 591, Mediocre. Yu Ying still looked at Shi Yang. She didn't dare to act rashly as she was afraid of the ghost hunter's attack. She was waiting for Zhu Yi in silence. Shi Yang currently had nothing abnormal. He looked like he was sleeping while standing quietly. However, energy fluctuating waves were rippling from him unceasingly, and it seemed to get stronger from time to time. Yu Ying didn't know what was happening in his body. However, the only thing she could confirm was that Shi Yang was having some positive changes. From the ghost hunters and the war devil's reactions, she understood that Shi Yang was learning the meanings of some power. With this point of view, Yu Ying started to study him. After a while, she recognized that Shi Yang was having a deep sleep. However, the space next to him was distorted chaotically as though a pair of invisible hands pulling and tearing space. From the beginning until now, these invisible hands were affecting the space surrounding him. Yu Ying was astounded. Of course, she didn't know that Shi Yang had used space power to enter the spirit realm. This kind of power was really rare and mysterious that not many people paid attention to it in the whole Grace mainland. It wasn't that the Upanishads of this kind of power wasn't strong enough. Quite the contrary. From the ancient time up to now, as long as there was martial technique or secret treasure in space category, they were all terrifically intimidating. It was because the Upanishads of space power was really difficult to comprehend, no one had considered it the main power to learn and improve their strength. Also, there was no book or precursors to guide them. Warriors who studied this kind of power had to do it alone. If one had to search and study one kind of power Upanishad alone, it was like when a blind man is groping on an elephant. It would be tough to get the whole picture. Usually, they could only know the surface, and they could never understand the true meanings of the power thoroughly. Without someone having a complete understanding of the power of the Upanishads, it meant the warrior couldn't get a strong competence. When he used it to level up in spirit realm, it would be a strenuous challenge. Many people could never find an opportunity using space power to level up again, even if they had to spend their whole life. When Yu Ying recognized that Shi Yang was comprehending space Upanishads, she was so astounded that she almost screamed. She understood that Shi Yang had encountered some change, that he had a new perception of space power. It was really rare that the warrior who practiced in this area perhaps would never have such a chance for the rest of his life, which kept him from leveling up or having a new breakthrough. Space power. Yu Ying felt bitter. She shook her head, her eyes complicated. This man is imposingly exaggerating enough. According to his realm and his age at this moment, in the future, he will achieve a profound realm. If his main power is space power, he can gradually improve it. One day, when he's able to use space power to break through the realm, his potential at that time would be immeasurable. The more Yu Ying got to know Shi Yang, the more regret she had. She regretted that she shouldn't treat him that way. A boundless potential warrior like him had joined the Radiant God cult. Someday in the future, no one could say what he could contribute to the cult. Perhaps, he could surpass Yun Hao and take the Radiant God cult to the peak. As soon as this thought arose in her heart, Yu Ying was struck. She took a deep breath. Another thought filled her head that she couldn't erase it. She must establish a good relationship with this kid. Yu Ying made up her mind. At the same time, Yu Ying received Zhu Yi's message from the Soundstone. Her lips moved, sending her message. Then, she continued waiting in silence. Indeed, Zhu Yi quietly arrived 5 minutes later. The ghost hunter immediately recognized the change. Its brutal eyes shot over to a shady area. Murderous aura condensed on its body. Around 100 meters away from Yu Ying's left, a miraculous explosion resounded from the ground. A cone-shaped silver secret treasure emerged from the ground. Zhu Yi appeared from the treasure. He instantly hid the treasure away, covered his aura, then looked at Shi Yang. At first glance, Zhu Yi discolored in fright, his eyes bright as the torch. He was amazed. This. Zhu Yi gawked. His face showed that he was disbelieving what he was looking at. Just like Yu Ying, the strange creatures next to Shi Yang had scared him. It's so dangerous. At this moment, Zhu Yi knew why Yu Ying didn't state things clearly. The force Shi Yang displayed here was exaggerating. Such force was even stronger than the big families from the 7 ancient factions. And he's just a young man. Zhu Yi had a wider knowledge than Yu Ying. With just a glare, he knew the value of the ghost hunter, the devouring gold silkworm, and the king of demonic insects. He also knew that the ice-cold flame and the earth flame were the heaven flames with life and consciousness. The only thing he couldn't get was the Holy Spirit God. Basically, creatures like the Holy Spirit God shouldn't exist in this world. He had never known this kind of marvelous soul before. He was frightened. In the gathering area of the Ghost Mark clan in the shady firmament Old Mound. The Ghost Mark clan sages were using their soul to sense this continent. After a long while, the two sages almost opened their eyes at the same time. I can sense the feeble aura of the world-extinguishing thunder flame near that kid. But it's too weak, I can't see clearly. It disappeared into spaces, I suppose. Perhaps, it clutches on that kid and hides again. Possible. Then, it's simple. We also want to kill that kid. When we destroy him, the world-extinguishing thunder flame will be exposed. It's true. Without the host, it has nowhere to hide. And, the energies in earth and heaven have changed. Otherwise, in such a far distance like this, we can't attack him even once. Get him. After the two sages had a conversation using their souls, they decided what to do. They didn't hesitate, taking action all of a sudden. Shi Yang closed his eyes as if he was sleeping, sinking into some wonderful realm. He gradually restored his consciousness, awakening from the changes of space power. Right when he had just opened his eyes, he immediately recognized the change of energy above his head. He felt shivers sending down his spine. Shi Yang beamed a faint smile from the corner of his mouth. He opened his eyes, faced up to look at the void above his head, then snorted. Damn it. Those two old monsters only know how to disturb me. Whirling wind. Thick mysterious yin was gathering above his head, creating long chains that naked eyes could see. Those chains then moved into a magical formation that looked like a bird-catching net with dense mesh. It seemed to be able to crush any creatures inside the net with the smallest energy fluctuation. The intimidating energy fluctuation in that formation could move the mountain and level the sea. Such aura pressing down gave Zhu Yi and Yu Ying a feeling of a small loser that didn't have a way to counter. Shi Yang, be careful. Yu Ying couldn't help but shout. Yu Ying knew the ones who attacked them were the two true God Realm sages of the Ghost Mark clan. Their strength was beyond her upper endurance limit. We're over. Zhu Yi whined in pain. His face was grim. He felt no strength left in him, as if he had fallen into a bottomless abyss where he couldn't see a beam of light. The formation above their heads was pressing down. Its coverage was wide, which included him and Yu Ying. Under the attack of such powerful and evil force, these two had nothing to encounter. Since they had spent too much energy for the escape technique, they couldn't use that trick one more time. They could only look at the formation snatching them. Zhu Yi felt a big regret that he shouldn't find and gather with Shi Yang. If he hadn't got here, he wouldn't be involved. He could see that the two true God Realm sages of the Ghostmark clan had aimed for Shi Yang. He and Yu Ying were just two innocent passengers that got involved. The formation in the void was changing constantly and magically. The long chains made of mysterious yin qi were like they could take the souls away. They were releasing the vehement soul waves while pressing down furiously. Zhu Yi closed his eyes in misery. He didn't struggle to resist since he knew that he had no other ways around to counter with force under this circumstance. Yu Ying gazed at Shi Yang. She didn't shift her line of sight as if she was waiting for a miracle. She didn't know why she had a feeling that even the true God Realm experts couldn't eradicate Shi Yang. Such feeling had no actual pieces of evidence. Perhaps it was because Shi Yang was too calm. He didn't reveal his panic as he should. This strange nonchalance gave her a beam of hope. In her eyes, Shi Yang's image became unreal. Shi Yang was still standing at his spot, but he seemed to stay in another space dimension. He was so vague, which gave people a feeling that his image was reflected in so many broken mirrors as if his body was split apart, and his arms and legs were kept in different space cracks respectively. However, she knew that Shi Yang had never moved. Thus, she didn't know whether this marvelous hallucination in her eyes was real or false. Abruptly, Shi Yang diffused an aura that could distort space. They then saw Shi Yang's arms, which were detached, appeared from another space crack, trying to rip off the space above his head. It was like there was an invisible silky cloth in front of Shi Yang, which he had torn open forcefully. As his hands were tearing, a space slit appeared in front of him. Beams of light shot out from that crack gloriously. Meteors sparkled then disappeared into the galaxy. It was a marvel. The terrifying attack from the formation above their head was created by the two true God Realm sages of the Ghostmark clan could strangle the experts of the divine Great Land like Yun Hao. However, after the space crack had appeared in front of Shi Yang, that thick attack became disordered. When the power of that formation finally slashed down, the space slit in front of Shi Yang was as big as an open mouth of a ferocious beast. Numerous chains made of mysterious yin qi fell like a shower. But all of them were pouring into the space crack, being swallowed and leaving nothing. Shi Yang was calm. Strange light sparkled in his palms. The wonderful space change shot out from his body. That space crack was like a monster swallowing everything as it dissolved all the attacks of the two true God Realm experts. A bunch of light flashed. The space that was torn apart was closed. The void above him was restored. Shi Yang stood steadfastly as if nothing had happened. However, his face was pale. He looked at the sky, snorted then said indifferently, "Well, mediocre." Chapter 592, Apprehending. Chapter 592, Apprehending. At the gathering spot of the Ghostmark clan, the two sages had their face as yellow as earth. The brilliance in their eyes faded. One of them was astounded. His body suddenly trembled hard as if he just got hit mercilessly. It. He swung his arms. His eyes were panic-stricken as though he was drunk and lost his cognition. Does that kid really have the spirit realm cultivation base? The sage holding the yin written charm scripture was relatively calm. He clenched his jaw, drawing the power of the yin written charm scripture. He inquired indignantly, "How could he solve our attack? Although we haven't recovered fully, that first sky of spirit realm brat could survive. Is it the time changing that creates such strange things? This man's strange. He seems to know the supernatural Upanishads of our Ghostmark clan. I wonder what his relationship with our clan is. We must find him to make it clear. You stay here. I'm going there to see if I can catch him. Be careful. You haven't restored your strength fully. That kid is strange and evil. Don't fall into his trap." "Yeah." Yu Ying's eyes were as bright as diamonds. She looked at the man ahead of her. His slim fingers balled into fists, her soft body shivering. Unbelievable. Shi Yang had only the power of the spirit realm, But he could solve the attack of two true God Realm expert. She could see clearly that Shi Yang had used space power. This man, does he really have a deep understanding of space power's true meanings? Yu Ying was frightened. Zhu Yi waited for a long while, and he found that the intimidating power above their heads had disappeared all of a sudden. He hesitated, he couldn't press his doubt looking at the sky. He then saw a drifting cloud area on the horizon of the void. But there was no intimidating rippling energy wave anymore. What happened? Zhu Yi's voice was a bit hoarse as he was uncertain. Did Shi Yang solve that strike? Yu Ying forced a smile then nodded. Zhu Yi was struck. Light shot out from his eyes. How could he do that? Space power. Space power? Zhu Yi was dazed. Suddenly, he shouted. He understands space power. You mean, he knows how to use space power? Yu Ying nodded the second time. Zhu Yi shivered, but he hadn't said anything for quite a long time, his face admiring. As his knowledge of space power was more profound than Yu Ying, he understood how formidable it could be once Shi Yang could control space power. An expert who knew how to use space power smoothly would be the nightmare of enemies. If they didn't have the secret treasures that could restrain it, a warrior using space power could always move and cross between spaces. They had no means to lock down that warrior. In case this kind of warriors met an opponent he couldn't face, he could sneak into a space slit and escape without damaging his body or his secret treasures. Also, if they wanted to ambush the opponents, they would be the most dangerous assassins in this world. You can never predict when he will appear behind your back. This feeling is like having a spear placed at your throat. Extremely irritating. When this kind of warriors could perceive the slashing skill of the sharp space saber, he would become the best attacker. In this world, nobody has ever heard about something that space saber couldn't cut off. The space saber was more gruesome than the sharpest weapons. To it, there was nothing it couldn't pierce through. Bodies, treasures, mountains or rivers, even the souls, all found it hard to avoid the sharpness of space saber. Zhu Yi smacked his tongue in awe. He looked at Shi Yang from a far distance. His countenance changed constantly. Luckily, he wasn't an enemy. Zhu Yi felt lucky thinking about that, and the pressure in his heart was loosened a little bit. At this moment, Shi Yang suddenly turned to them, smiled then said, "How are you? Where are the others?" Zhu Yi and Yu Ying got their eyes distressed. Shi Yang was surprised. He was bewildered for a while then asked, "Unexpected things happened. Yi Xiong's dead," Zhu Yi sighed, his face bitter and sorrowful. He clenched his jaw then shouted, "I swear, I have to take revenge for him. To give us an exit, he had to burn his soul." Yu Ying nodded, her face heavy and gloomy. Shi Yang wasn't so surprised. He sighed then said faintly, "I knew it would happen. The two sages of the Ghostmark clan are the true God Realm experts. If you face them directly, it's almost impossible to win." Ghostmark clan? Zhu Yi's eyes suddenly got colder. You know their identity. Although Zhu Yi and Yu Ying were the noble characters of the Radiant God Cult and the Spirit Treasures sect, they didn't know much of these ancient races. Having heard Shi Yang say so, they were cheered up and hurried to urge him. "I know a little bit," Shi Yang nodded then frowned. "Anyway, we can't stay here any longer. I think those two sages will come here shortly. We should leave first." Zhu Yi and Yu Ying were frightened. They nodded continuously. They feared for it. It wasn't that they were cowards, it was because of the big gap between them and the two sages. Along with the change of earth and heaven energy, the gap was extending. The longer they waited, the worse the situation could be. "We should leave the shady firmament old mound first, then we will plan the next step." Shi Yang didn't linger, taking back the war devil and the ghost hunter into the blood vein ring, he left directly. After this time of comprehending space power, he had vaguely touched the threshold of space power. Now he could use space power to create a space slit and guide all the attacks of his enemy into that slit, saving himself from harm. He had just tried the ability, and it didn't fail him. He was overjoyed that the space slit could even swallow a true God Realm's attack. This meant he had another precious way to save his life. At the same time, after the washing of space power, the essence chi in his body had blended with a small amount of space power, which helped him trigger space power and that he could tear spaces as he pleased. Of course, his current understanding of space power was far behind the realm Zhu Yi had thought of. However, he had made an encouraging step. Together with the increase of his realm, the ability to control space would become more fluent. At that time, he could make it change more magically. You don't want to find him? The 9 Serenity Soul devouring flame talked to him from deep inside his soul with a feeble voice. Its original seal had been divided and dragged into different spaces. Although it can't be eradicated with only that, its power had been damaged badly. As its original seal can't be joined again, it can't restore the power. At this moment, it isn't a threat anymore. Shi Yang beamed a faint smile. Don't worry. It can't hide. I know the space nodes of its parts of the original seal. Wait until my cognition of space power can leap another step, I'll go get it. You can take this chance to find the thing that can restrain that flame. At that time, you can subdue it directly, said the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame. There's something that can restrain that flame? Shi Yang's eyes brightened. Of course, everything in this world has a nemesis. They promote and constrain each other. Nothing is an exception or an absolute. Even though its thunder and lightning power is special, there's something that it can't harm even a bit. As long as we can find them and forge a treasure, of course, we can capture it. Harumph, people don't know how to deal with it, but I know it pretty clear. Excellent. Seems it can't escape my hands. If one day you can collect all the 9 heaven flames, you will. Will what? You'll know at that time. Anyway, this is really hard. Almost impossible. What if I can do it? Then the mysteries you will perceive will be as profound as what God knows. Every creature will admire your fortune. Shi Yang was frightened. Until now, this 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame had ignored everything. Secret treasures or magical materials couldn't get into its eyes of God. As a person who sat on a summit and had experienced everything, it seemed to not put into its eyes anything. Except for Shi Yang's blood vein ring, it disregarded everything else. This was the first time this flame said something with a solemn voice. It astounded Shi Yang. Collecting 9 types of heaven flames. This thought rooted in his head. He couldn't help but think about it. The more he thought about it, the bigger the feeling he had about the existence of something really magical was. The 9 heaven flames included the primal chaos sacred flame, the world-extinguishing thunder flame, the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame, the immemorial demonic flame, the purgatory true flame, the yin spirit god flame, the vermilion bird true flame, the ice-cold flame, the vanishing corpse flame. Among these 9 heaven flames, the world-extinguishing thunder flame, the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame, the ice-cold flame, the purgatory true flame, and the vanishing corpse flame had appeared. Shi Yang had the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame and the ice-cold flame. Yi Changfeng had the purgatory true flame, and the vanishing corpse flame stayed with Qing Ming, the master of the corpse god sect. If things went well and he could get the world-extinguishing thunder flame, it wouldn't be tough to get the vanishing corpse flame from the corpse god sect's master Qing Ming. However, since Yi Changfeng was his friend, it was hard to collect the purgatory true flame. But if he could find something equal to exchange with Yi Changfeng, it didn't sound impossible. Heaven flames could detect each other. As long as the primal chaos sacred flame, immemorial demonic flame, yin spirit god flame, and vermilion bird true flame existed in the Grace mainland, perhaps he could meet them in the future and that he could have the opportunities to get them all. Thoughts moved across his head. Shi Yang's eyes brightened. His complexion was solemn as though he was considering the possibility. The uniting of the 9 flames that the 9 Serenity's thunder flame had mentioned was the greatest enticement. He couldn't help but want to carry out the plan immediately. We got out. Zhu Yi screamed, then stormed out of a gloomy cave underground. He swung his arms and shouted. His sorrow seemed to be washed away. Ah! Yu Ying screamed, facing the high sky. Suddenly, she shouted with fear. Why does the sky look like that? Shi Yang got out, lifted his head to look at the sky. He was stunned. The sky was deep blue just like a vast sea. However, the sun, the moon, and the stars were there all together. Stars scattered in the entire immense sky. Under this blue dome of the sky, earth and heaven energy was floating like thick milky mist as though it had some wonderful changes. Countless unknown energies stormed out from different spaces, filling the whole sky. Chapter 593, Changing. Chapter 593, Changing. Shi Yang, Zhu Yi, and Yu Ying gawked. They didn't know what happened out there that made the sun, moon, and stars appear in the sky at the same time. You are from the divine great land. Do you know what's going on? Shi Yang asked the two precursors with a silly face. Zhu Yi and Yu Ying shook their heads. Forget it. We should get to the sect first. From this current situation, I can say the Grace mainland is having some great changes. We don't know what's going on here. Perhaps, there are some books in the sects that mention it. We should study carefully, Zhu Yi said uncertainly. Shi Yang and Yu Ying forced a smile then nodded. The three of them left together. They had been running at fast speed for a while, but the sun, moon, and stars in the sky seemed to have no new changes, as though the Grace mainland would be like this from now on. Leaving that quiet and immense wasteland area of the shady firmament old mound, the three of them then accelerated to the fastest speed to reach the wonderful stone city. All warriors in the wonderful stone city were scared by the great change of the sky. They didn't know what was going on there, so they were all longing for Zhu Yi. As Zhu Yi was the city master of the wonderful stone city, right when he got back, he had checked out the situation of the city first. He got to know that Yun Xiu had brought the four juniors, Luo Xiao, Luo Meng, Li Mu Yu and Bai Hui Quan back to the city earlier. Zhu Yi sighed discreetly. What did you meet in there? Where's Yi Xiong? Yun Xiu took the four juniors. After they came back, she hurried to ask for the details. Yu Ying and Zhu Yi immediately put on the sorrowful countenance, groaning insufficient details. Yun Xiu felt her heart sinking. From their expressions, she guessed the Yi Xiong was more unfortunate than lucky. However, she didn't have a deep relation with Yi Xiong or had witnessed that scene, so she wasn't too upset. Elder Yu, Elder Yun, I think you guys should come back to the Radiant God cult and report what we'd experienced in the shady firmament old mound to Master Yun Hao. Yi Xiong's brows slammed together. I'm going to send the information immediately to tell them the details so as we can have a proper preparation. Yu Ying nodded. Although Yun Xiu didn't know the situation clearly, she didn't ask much. She knew that thing that happened in the tombs area wasn't good. Shi Yang, you certainly had some big harvests this time. After you get back to the Radiant God cult, you should always be alert. I've always felt that the changes in the sky are somehow related to you, Zhu Yi mused then talked in a somber tone. Yu Ying and Yun Xiu looked at him with fright. Shi Yang was also surprised. I think you misunderstood something. What does it matter to me? Shaking his head, Zhu Yi said, I can't say it clearly. I just have that feeling. Shi Yang beamed a forced smile, but he still talked indifferently. All right, I'll be more cautious. See you later when we have time. Now as he got the ethereal crystals, he was a little bit agitated. He wanted to build the massive scaled teleport formation to form the connection with the endless sea. Immortal Island also had a teleport formation. However, the distance it could teleport was relatively short. When he left the endless sea, he got to know about the space nodes from Yang Tian Emperor. The space nodes were the directions of movement between teleport formations. As long as he could get the precise space nodes, his teleport formation could perform its functions. Of course, he wasn't so sure that the teleport formation he was about to build could connect to the teleport formation in Immortal Island using space nodes. Anyway, the teleport formation in Immortal Island was a low-level one. Where is Yi Chang Feng? Shi Yang hesitated for a while, but couldn't help but ask. After he had known about the uniting of 9 heaven flames, which would give him a new magical destiny, from the shady firmament old mound, he kept thinking about it. Yi Chang Feng had the purgatory true flame in his body, which was one of the heaven flames. He wanted to know if Yi Chang Feng knew about these mysteries. It could be a good preparation for him in the future. He went with Li Zhengrong to the general sect of the Spirit Treasure sect. He won't come back shortly. If you don't have any important business to do, you can go there. Anyway, The current situation is a little bit special. Alright, I got it. If Chang Feng comes back, please tell him to visit me at the Northern Gem Mountain. I'll definitely do it for you. Since Zhu Yi had found Shi Yang's specialties in the shady firmament old mound, he decided to create a good relationship with Shi Yang. Shi Yang's potentials were too intimidating. Not only his strong fighting competence, but he also had some attainment in using space power. To young spirit realm warriors like him, Zhu Yi always appreciated. He was clear that he had to count on Shi Yang in the future. Then I'm going to leave first. Shi Yang wasn't lengthy. After bidding farewell to Zhu Yi, he left with Yu Ying and Yun Xiu to the Radiant God cult. Along the way, Yu Ying, the one who had been hostile to him, suddenly became so friendly. She often asked him about his cultivation as though she was his real precursor, guiding him step by step to help him kick away the obstacles in his cultivating path. Yu Ying's changed manners made Yun Xiu, Li Mu Yu, and Bai Hui Quan surprised a lot. They had a vague thought in their hearts. What happened? When we first arrived, didn't you hate him a lot? Why do you seem to turn into another person after getting out of the shady firmament old mound? Yun Xiu used a secret technique to talk to Yu Ying because she couldn't reason why. Yun Mai, later on, you should be more polite to Shi Yang. Don't make grudges against him. Yu Ying answered her, her beautiful eyes sparkling. Why? How can I say? His competence is really formidable. I can't tell you the details. Anyway, listen to me, you should treat him as if he's the Grand Elder. At some point in the future, you have to beg him for his favor, perhaps. Me? Begging him? Wind changes. We don't know what earth-shaking transformation will happen in the divine Great Land. I always feel that Shi Yang will be one of the most outstanding warriors in the divine Great Land in the near future. Creating a good relationship with him shouldn't be a bad thing for you later. Yu Jie, are you sure? I'm sure. Yun Xiu didn't say anything, but waves were rising in her heart. Her sight lay on Shi Yang with a different feeling. Mu Yu, from now on, you have to treat Shi Yang as your brother. Do not provoke him. You have to establish a good relationship with him. After giving advice to Yun Xiu, Yu Ying looked at her apprentice Li Yu Mu, talking to her with a serious complexion. Why? Teacher, what happened to you? Li Mu Yu was full of grievance. Why do you have to support him? What does he have? Isn't he just a person who depends on external forces to be stronger than the others? Teacher, are you afraid of him? Stupid. Yu Ying cursed under her breath. Don't babble. You just need to remember that. Even if you have to offend the Grand Elder, you can't offend Shi Yang. We can't provoke this man, understand? Li Mu Yu was more frightened. She had never seen her teacher angry that much. She immediately shut her mouth, didn't dare to talk more. Along the way, Yu Ying and Yun Xiu had treated Shi Yang with a magically changed manner. They were friendly and caring as if Shi Yang was their long-lost relative. However, this irritated Shi Yang. He understood the reason why these two women had changed their attitudes to him, was that she had found his secrets. To the change in their manners, he just enjoyed it naturally. He always thought about taking his relatives and friends in the endless sea to the divine Great Land. Although Yun Hao had treated him well, the Radiant God cult didn't have only Yun Hao. Even if Shi Yang wasn't afraid of the elders like Yu Ying, the power of his friends in the endless sea was much weaker than them. If Yu Ying, Yun Xiu, and the others wanted to trouble them, it would be really difficult. Shi Yang wasn't a narrow-minded person. When he found that Yu Ying and Yun Xiu started to establish the relationship with him carefully, he also put away his arrogant manner, proactively talking with them. As Yu Ying and Yun Xiu could sense the changes in his manners, they felt happy, and suddenly they thought that he wasn't too bad. They were getting along well now. After they got to the Northern Gem Mountain, Yu Ying pondered, then talked to Shi Yang. Earth and heaven spiritual qi in the Northern Gem Mountain is too thin. I didn't know that. That's why I'd arranged you to stay here casually. Yeah, if you agree, I will arrange a better place for you, which is much better than the Northern Gem Mountain. What do you think? Thank you. You don't need to bother. I appreciate you, precursor, already. Shi Yang smiled and denied. The Northern Gem Mountain had dilute spiritual qi, but its location wasn't bad. It was pretty far from the center of the Radiant God cult, but it was close to the Spirit Treasure sect. To warriors, a place with thick spiritual chi was good for them, but if they had abundant essence chi, they didn't need to be dependent on spiritual chi of earth and heaven. Shi Yang had the Holy Spirit God who had an innate talent of gathering spiritual chi from everywhere. If he could arrange the Northern Gem Mountain better, with the Holy Spirit God's assistance, he could still make some changes. And, the most important thing is, this place was far from the Radiant God cult. He could do things easily without being sensed or spied on. For example, building a massive-scaled teleport formation. Yu Ying and Yun Xiu didn't know why he denied their offer. They thought that he didn't want to form a connection with them. They were distressed a little bit. However, after he had explained, they felt better. What do you want to do in this remote area? Yeah, does the cult master know what you want to do? Yu Ying was worried, couldn't help but ask. I want to keep it on the down low for a while. I think, with his wide vision, he won't mind it, Shi Yang smiled, not considering it important. Well, Yun Hao didn't even care about the fact that he could fuse the flaming sun power. Building a teleport formation to transport some warriors from the barbarian area wasn't something he would ask about. Yun Hao was a friendly and straightforward man. If Shi Yang could bring his family from the Endless Sea, they could be of assistance. As Shi Yang was a disciple of the Radiant God cult, his force was considered the Radiant God cult's. It should be a benefit to Yun Hao though. Shi Yang used his train of thought to predict the others. He thought that if he were Yun Hao and he didn't care about the other matter, he wouldn't bother with this small thing. Yu Ying and Yun Xiu didn't know what he wanted to do. But since he didn't want to talk more, they wouldn't inquire further. They bid him farewell and hurried to report to Yun Hao on what had happened in the shady firmament old mound. As they had left, Shi Yang didn't talk more, starting to prepare to build a big teleport formation inside a mountain of the Northern Gem Mountain. Chapter 594, Legend. Chapter 594, Legend. He had thoroughly learned the method to build the teleport formation in the Blacksmith's Secrets of Success. Now he just needed to practice. After the trip to the shady firmament old mound, he had another deep level of understanding of using space power, which boosted his confidence in building a teleport formation. He'd continuously stayed around 10 days inside the mountain, using the materials he got from Yi Xiong and Zhu Yi. He carefully refined them to meet the requirements, then inlaid them into a massive formation he had prepared beforehand. Step by step, he added the crystals with different functions, which were to pour energy into the ethereal crystals. With the earth flame, the work that needed a lot of time to other people was so smooth to him. He didn't meet any obstacles. The ores and crystals had extremely high melting points, but the earth flame could turn them into strange liquid substances and purified it to get the final form of the purest materials. While building the formation, he had wholeheartedly focused his mind, using his understanding of space power. He was neither hurried nor arrogant, just searching for possible problems to solve. After his last time of comprehending power, his soul consciousness had a magical change. When he urged it, it could cross spaces miraculously. At the same time, since his body had been washed with space power and the strenuous refining of the immortal rebirth secret, it became more tenacious. He was sure that warriors at the same spirit realm couldn't have the degree of a strong physique like him. Even the third sky of spirit realm experts couldn't have this morbid degree of physique. From the 9 serenities soul-devouring flame and the ice-cold flame, he knew that the warriors in the antiquity time had made physical training crucial to trigger the potentials of their bodies. With only the strength of their bodies, they could have an endless source of power. Antiquity warriors, even if they didn't have a beam of essence chi, they were much stronger than ordinary people. Without the essence chi, antiquity warriors could still hunt demonic beasts. They had valued physical training a lot, as if it was as important as cultivating their souls. Shi Yang understood that there should be a reason for those ancient people to do so. From this thought, he had used the method to refine secret treasures to train his body to become more tenacious and maximize his body's potentials. Half a month later, magical symbols flew out from Shi Yang's eyes, forming the spiritual formation in the void, illuminating the massive-scaled teleport formation in front of him. Magnificent space waves surged from his body as if they had established a connection with the formation in front of him to urge the energy of the ethereal crystals. After those symbols had entered the big teleport formation, it began to sparkle. Countless refined translucent crystals were reflecting and illuminating the vague concept of the void. Beautiful rays and light spots shone and flashed gloriously. Shortly, Shi Yang spat out beams of crystal light energy pouring into the altar in the center of teleport formation. He then began describing some strange space nodes inside a ring. The massive round teleport formation glowed vigorously like a fiercely bright lamp, releasing intense space fluctuations. Shi Yang walked toward the sacrificial altar. Standing on the altar made of ethereal crystals, Shi Yang scanned around the altar with clear lines of the formation everywhere. He took a deep breath. He was a little bit nervous before he activated the teleport formation. Waves of space power covered him. Inside the light curtain of space power, Shi Yang was struck as his soul sublimated. It works. He had put forth a lot of effort with many sleepless nights. At the moment he saw the light curtain, he seemed to fall into a new intent domain. His sea of consciousness surged when the space Upanishads in his host soul began heating up. In this big joy, his host soul gained another benefit as its fusion with space power was having another step forward. Standing inside the space light curtain, his face was brightened as he was filled with wisdom. Shi Yang disappeared. Immortal Island. Around 10 warriors of the Yang family were frightened, gawking at the small teleport formation. Who is he? Never met before? Why does he appear in the teleport formation? That man. Hey, I've heard about him before. He is. Who? He looks like young Master Yang. Young Master Yang? Everybody was astounded. They suddenly got excited, screaming loudly. The name Shi Yang in the Endless Sea was a legend. His existence in the Yang family was the unsurpassed glory. With the manpower of only himself, he had saved the Yang family from the abyss, making the Yangs the strongest force of the Endless Sea. His stories were exaggerated and bragged around the Endless Sea. No matter they were newcomers or the younger generations of the stronger families, they all admired and respected Shi Yang. Especially the Yang family. Are you sure his young Master Yang? I heard that he had crossed the dark magnetic noxious mist to the divine Great Land, didn't he? So what? Couldn't he come back now? Ah, right. I'm going to report now. The juniors watching the teleport hurried to report to their seniors, leaving only one behind to watch over the place. He now looked at Shi Yang with large admiration on his face. Shi Yang stood emotionlessly inside the teleport formation. Long afterwards, he opened his eyes, his face overjoyed. He'd never thought that at the moment he had activated the teleport formation, he somehow received God's help, which sublimated his soul once again. He vaguely felt that as long as he had accumulated enough essence chi, he could break through to the second sky of spirit realm. While he had been building the massive-scaled teleport formation, he had a deeper understanding of space power, using the meanings and power he had comprehended to sublimate his soul, leading to the increase of his realm. He laughed contentedly. Opening his eyes, he looked at the young man in front of him and smiled. This place is the Immortal Island, right? That young man was around 17 or 18 years old, and he had an Earth realm cultivation base. He was thrilled hearing Shi Yang's question. He nodded, yeah, young Master Yang. This is the Immortal Island. I'm the external disciple of the Yang family. My name's Zhu Dao. Zhu Dao. Yeah, can you tell me a bit about the Endless Sea's current situation? Shi Yang smiled and walked with Zhu Dao to the center of the Immortal Island. He hadn't noticed that he had left the Endless Sea for several years. What happened to the Endless Sea during this time, he had no clue. Since you've left, there were not many big changes. The Yang family's still the overlord of the Endless Sea. The housemaster had broken through the second sky of Spirit Realm 1 year ago. Zhu Dao had fulfilled his responsibilities wholeheartedly, telling him all what he knew. The Endless Sea stayed the same, and the Yang family was still the sole overlord. Tang Yuan Nan of the Three Gods sect also had a breakthrough. Thanks to their alliance with the Yang family, the Three Gods sect had benefited, too. They've become one of the strongest forces in the Endless Sea. Ouyang Luo Shuang of the Three Gods sect had disappeared not long after Shi Yang left the Endless Sea. No one knew where she had gone. Xia Qing, who of the Xia family, had brought his family back to the Kiara Sea. They said that he had reached the third sky of Spirit Realm now. The Cao family and the Spirit Martial Palace had remained their force, but they weren't as strong as the forces in the Kiara Sea. For the Sea Tribe's undersea, they submitted to the Yang family. Sea Tribe's hotshots in the barren city had to depend on the Yang's materials to cultivate. Although Zhu Dao was just an external disciple, he had the general picture of the Endless Sea. Shi Yang felt satisfied with his narration, discreetly nodded. Shortly, Shi Yang arrived at the meeting hall of the Yang family. Old men of the Yang family and the Shi family had arrived earlier. They were waiting for him in joy. They were all astounded as they knew Shi Yang had reached the spirit realm. They then acclaimed Shi Yang's terrific cultivating speed. Shi Jian and Shi Tai were at the sky realm. The open resources of the Yang family had given the Shi family of the quiet cloudland some big advantages. Soon, Di Shan, Yu Ru, and Yi Tianmo had come. Yang Tian Emperor had completed his patrol route. He arrived after the pagans Di Shan and Yu Ru. They then prepared a welcome party for Shi Yang in the meeting hall of the Yangs. However, Yang Tian Emperor, Shi Jian, Di Shan, and Yi Tianmo all had a grim expression as if they had some big trouble that was weighing their hearts down. Great-grandpa, you guys seem to be having some trouble. Would you mind telling me about it? Shi Yang took a swig of his wine, frowned then asked. A strange phenomenon has happened. I don't know what is going on. Little Yang, you've come back from the divine great land, do you know anything about it? Yang Tian Emperor sighed. Half a month ago, the sun, the moon, and the stars have appeared all together in the sky. The sky hasn't restored to its regular state yet. Demon dwellers have started to gather again. I heard that some tremendous existences have appeared among them. Shi Yang was stunned. After a while, he beamed a forced smile. Oh, that's it. You know the reasons. Yang Tian Emperor sat upright. His face was grim as he had a murderous, heavy aura. Shi Yang was scared in his heart, his face astounded. He gazed at the older man. Yang Tian Emperor had only the second sky of Spirit Realm cultivation base, but the aura from him was more dangerous than that of a third sky of Spirit Realm warrior in the Divine Great Land. Rumors said that Yang Tian Emperor and Cao Qiu Dao used to absorb the blood of a God King expert, which gave them an earth-shaking transformation. The power Yang Tian Emperor had just demonstrated could only be defeated by peak experts like Yun Hao in the Divine Great Land. Ah! I heard that this change of earth and heaven somehow relates to me. Of course, it's just a joke. I think the pagan tribes are trying to wreck us. Shi Yang smiled, looking at Yi Tianmo. I've been to the shady firmament old mound. This phenomenon has arisen from that place. Yi Tianmo and his team were struck. They stood upright to listen to him more attentively. The shady firmament old mound was the ancestral land of the demonic Sound clan. They had always wanted to be there. Now, as they finally had a chance to get information about the place, they couldn't press down the urging from their emotions. Chapter 595, Refining Corpses. Chapter 595, Refining Corpses. After Shi Yang finished, Yi Tianmo and his group kept silent. They had always wanted to visit the shady firmament old mound to receive their ancestors' inheritance, taking the Yin written charm scripture, which would help their clan thrive and be stronger. However, from Shi Yang's explanation, they knew that the Ghost Mark clan had been in the shady firmament old mound for quite a long time. And, they were a branch of the Ghost Mark clan. However, after so many years, they had lost the ghost tattoos, the source of their power. Now they only had a weak physique and a strong soul. Without the ghost tattoos, they were incomplete. It would be hard to be accepted by the Ghost Mark clan. According to Shi Yang, the Ghost Mark clan hated all kinds of creatures. They would be taking action shortly to make blood rain over the Divine Great Land. It wasn't what they wanted. The Ghost Mark clan was extreme to them. This is the situation. The relationship between you guys and the Ghost Mark clan is complicated. If you want to be recognized by them, you can go to the shady firmament old mound. I won't hinder you guys. Yi Tianmo and the other two kept silent. After a long while, Yi Tianmo said, "We want to think about it more carefully. And, the changes of earth and firmament energy seems to benefit us. Strong yin qi is diffusing. It accelerates our cultivating speed." Shi Yang's complexion had a slight change. "Not only them, we feel the same," said Di Shan. Yi Tianmo and Di Shan were from the alien tribes. The structure of their bodies and the ways they cultivated were different from that of humans. The changes of earth and heaven had facilitated their cultivation by providing a more suitable environment. However, this wasn't a good sign. Yang Tian Emperor was sensitive enough to sense the danger. He darkened his face and didn't say anything. The Heave Gate that connects to the fourth demon area in the Yang family had exploded. Devil Chi permeates from there is really thick. We can see a big space crack, too. Now, there's no barrier between the Endless Sea and the fourth demon area. Their hotshots can easily enter our territory, said Yang Zhuo begrudgingly. There should be a big change in the fourth demon area, nodded Yang Tian Emperor. Not only the fourth demon area, Tang Yuan Nan told me that the seven-layered underworld is the same. The heaven gate there is destroyed, too. And, dark qi is raising vehemently from the sea. Moreover, Tang Yuan Nan said that the dark sea of the seven-layered underworld had some terrifying change. The aura of the underworld has been exuding from the downstream of the dark sea. Perhaps the bottom of the underworld has been broken. The bottom of the underworld? What's going on? Shi Yang asked suspiciously. The seven-layered underworld has 7 layers, of course. But only the 4 top layers are normally revealed. The 3 bottom layers are sealed. According to the Dark Dwellers, the 3 bottom layers of the underworld are their paradise, where it has the strongest treasures and the sole inheritance of the Dark Clan. Perhaps some experts of the Dark Clan have still survived. Yang Tian Emperor became stern. Shi Yang's eyes sparkled. He took a deep breath then said, "Seems like the Endless Sea can't maintain its peace." Yang Tian Emperor nodded. "Although I don't know what is going on, from the signs we have now, the entire Grace mainland is also having a great change. Great-grandpa, the forces in the Endless Sea aren't strong enough to encounter that change. I think we should mobilize a part of our lower realm members to the divine Great Land. I have a territory in the Radiant God cult." Shi Yang tried to convince him. It was beyond his expectation. Yang Tian Emperor nodded generously. "Kid, you're excellent. You can even build a teleport formation. Well done. Well done. Anyway, the divine Great Land is the center where martial arts are spread wide with so many experts. I do want to take the Yang family there. Your intended deed suits my wish well." Shi Yang was cheered up. He smiled then said, "Don't worry. Yun Hao, the cult master of the Radiant God cult, isn't a narrow-minded person. He would welcome us all. Yeah, great-grandpa, you should contact Tang Yuan Nan and tell him to move his 3 gods sect there, too." The 3 gods sects are part of the Radiant God cult. They will accept them easily. "Okay, I'll arrange it," nodded Yang Tian Emperor. "Through many years, we've collected a big amount of cultivating materials from the Endless Sea and the fourth demon area. Even if we move to the divine Great Land, we won't be too poor. It's enough to give us a prosperous life. But yeah, I need time to prepare." Shi Yang smiled. Next, he discussed with Yang Tian Emperor and Shi Jian about their family business. He had asked for Qing Ming's whereabouts then left quietly. Qing Ming was in a burial area of the Corpse God sect. Since Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea had become the leaders of the Corpse God sect, Qing Ming lost his power. The corpse slaves had been enslaved for many years now became the disciples, and their old masters were kicked out. The burial place where Qing Ming was staying had many human disciples of the Corpse God sect. Unfortunately, they didn't have the corpse slaves to use. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea had defeated him in the game of power, so now he had to bring his human disciples out of the center of the sect to a remote area to survive. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea then ruled the Corpse God sect, making them raise up slowly, becoming the most peculiar force in the Endless Sea. They were just a little bit weaker than the Kiara Sea. Today, Qing Ming with his wicked eyes was listening to the report from his elders in the burial area. The more he listened, the more irritated he felt. What did you say? Did you get it wrong? There are so many corpse slaves here. How could they all have intellect? Qing Ming opened his eye wide, squawking. Li Yu smiled bitterly. It's true. I've received the news saying that the corpse slaves in the other burials areas have started to have wisdom. Their living forms seem to have made some changes quietly. Their soul fluctuations are even more special than ours. How could it be? Qing Ming was fierce. The corpse slaves are made from dead bodies. Basically, they don't have souls. How could they have such a strange change? I thought only Corpse C and Corpse Mount got their intellect and soul through some F*King method, right? I'm not sure. Li Yu was full of suspicion. The method we use to control the corpse slaves has started to lose its effect, too. We don't have any bind to the corpse slaves anymore. And, I tried to use the corpse control technique from a distance, but I got backbite. My spirit got hurt badly. Qing Ming was dumbstruck. He had never imagined that the corpse slaves that he had enslaved now all had the significant change. Not only the strong ones but even the lowest grade corpse slave also started to have wisdom. This kind of change was far beyond his knowledge. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. From deep inside his pupils, green flames flickered like lightning flash. Then, a thought dispersed. Earth and heaven has had a great change. The energy of earth and heaven isn't the same anymore. The corpse clan is about to awaken. They will become stronger. This is unavoidable. You don't need to worry much. The corpse vanishing flames thought rose in Qing Ming's sea of consciousness. Qing Ming was struck. The sun, moon, and the stars all appeared in the sky, and they hadn't moved yet. Qing Ming had observed this phenomenon. From the way the corpse vanishing flame talked, the corpse slaves getting intellect was related to the change of heaven and earth, which surprised him a lot. What's happened? Do you want to take control of the corpse god sect again? The corpse vanishing flame didn't answer but asked him instead. Retake the control? Do you have any means? Qing Ming was stunned. You make yourself a corpse. At that time, you can fuse completely with me. Then, you will become a member of the corpse clan. With my assistance, you will surpass Corpse Mount and Corpse C soon and become the chief of the new corpse clan's generation. How does it sound? The corpse vanishing flame guided him through the steps, trying to entice him. What? Making me a corpse? Qing Ming discolored in fright. The light in his eyes scattered as he couldn't keep his mind calm. Yeah, you have to refine yourself to be a corpse. The corpse clan's one of the 10 antiquity clans. They are much stronger than you humans. The energy of earth and heaven wasn't suitable for them to grow. But it has changed now. As long as you agree to do that, I'm sure you can take back the corpse god sect and even the entire continent. If only you become a corpse, you can fuse with me completely to promote my power to the acme. And, I know some supernatural Upanishads of the corpse clan. When you become a corpse, you can practice it. Qing Ming was stunned. He was in a daze, and didn't move an inch. The reason why he could become the master of the corpse god sect was that he had barged into a random burial area and got the corpse vanishing flame there. Afterward, he had practiced the corpse control technique fluently, which made him, the smallest disciple of the corpse god sect, become a powerful master. He knew that all of what he got today was all because of the corpse vanishing flame. Unfortunately, until now, he hadn't completely fused with the corpse vanishing flame. They just had a relationship of cooperation. Qing Ming knew the secrets that had been passed through generations since the antiquity time. He knew that if he could fuse with the heaven flame, he could gain a greater benefit. He had thought about that, but he had no means to carry it out. Today, the corpse vanishing flame had suggested him to become a corpse, which would facilitate him to fuse with the flame and receive the inheritance of the corpse clan. He didn't know whether it was true or not. However, he was enticed, and he wanted to do that. Corpse clan. Chief of the corpse clan. Unite the entire continent. Qing Ming muttered. Deep green light sparkled from deep inside his pupils. His soul consciousness and will were gradually affected. He was still pondering. Slowly, He was in a state as if his soul was taken away. He strolled unknowingly toward the area which was used to refine the corpses. Along the way, many disciples looked at him with fright. However, the green corpse vanishing flame had covered them before they could come near Qingming. Not long after that, they became cold dead bodies. A bizarre aura diffused from them. Their soul didn't perish, but they were changing quietly as if they had a special transformation. Disciples standing on Qingming's path all turned into corpses. Qingming walked lonely toward the refining area. He sat in a coffin and activated the formation to refine the corpse. Corpse aura torrentially exuded from the ground. It burst out from the underground of the burial area. It was then collected and poured into his coffin through countless thin pipes. Qingming sat there. He didn't even move an inch. The corpse vanishing flame in his eyes were so excitedly as if it was taking in Qingming's soul to carry out the heaven flame's transformation. The sky above the burial area had numerous silver light dots as earth and heaven aura was changing, shining on this place, overflowing Qingming's coffin. The strange, evil corpse refining process started. Chapter 596, Corpse Clan. Chapter 596, Corpse Clan. Shi Yang came back to the Endless Sea to move the Yang family to the divine Great Land. Also, there was another reason for his visit. The corpse vanishing flame. The corpse vanishing flame ranked last among the heaven flames. Qingming, the master of the corpse god sect, had the flame but he was weak. He couldn't counter Shi Yang directly. Shi Yang thought that it would be easy to take the corpse vanishing flame from him. Shi Yang went to the burial area where Qingming was secluded alone. He released his soul consciousness to sense. His face changed immediately. There's no aura of living people here. According to Yang Tian Emperor, this burial area was the gathering place of human disciples in the corpse god sect. There should be many disciples of the corpse god sect, whom Qingming was managing as the sect master. However, his soul consciousness could sense only dense corpse qi. The aura permeating the area was evil and gloomy. It's the particular fluctuation of the corpse slaves. His brows slammed together. He walked around the burial area. Indeed, he found many newly created corpse slaves. They didn't have consciousness, just laid on the cold, hard ground. Their clothes looked shabby as if the wind had worn them out. Their skin glowed with strange phosphorescent light. After the earth and heaven aura energy changed, it was full of yin qi and corpse qi, falling from the sky like the raindrops, scattering on the corpses. Deep underground in the burial area, yin qi and corpse qi blended together. Dark green mist diffused, covering the newly formed corpses. Yin qi, corpse qi, and the energy of earth and heaven had mixed all together, creating green threads that naked eyes could observe, crawling on the corpse's skin. Then, they moved in a special trajectory, entering the corpses. After that, those green threads fused with their bones and flesh and were starting to improve their functions. A fierce fluctuation came from a place deep inside the burial area. The energy in the sky showered toward a direction like a heavy rain. Shi Yang arched his brows, his face cold. He disappeared immediately. Countless strange patterns were crawling on an ancient coffin. Beams of peculiar energy got into the coffin as though they were like a nest of spiritual snakes. The coffin then exuded an icy, devil aura that irritated the souls. His soul consciousness moved swiftly like electric currents through the coffin. Shi Yang snorted, swinging his arm. Countless beams of light entangled the coffin lid and furiously lifted it up. Corpse qi overflowed from the coffin, revealing the writhed body of Qingming. He looked pale with no vitality. His sinister, green pupils gazed at Shi Yang. "You are not him," Shi Yang sneered, nodded to the corpse. "Seems Qingming had fallen into your sinister trap." "Yeah, it's okay, anyway. Even if you didn't take action, I would have done that." "Well, since you've taken his home, we can talk then." "Mwahahaha. What do you want to talk about?" The corpse vanishing flame beamed a cold, wicked smile. The green flame inside the pupils of the distorted face shot out. Outside the burial area, more than 10 new corpse slaves slowly got up, circling Shi Yang. Each corpse slave shot out a deep green light. More than 10 beams interweaved, covering Shi Yang like a spider web. Dense corpse chi waves expanded. It seemed to form a big, ancient corpse refining formation. Shi Yang wanted to talk, but now he had to change his face to a colder expression. He could feel the corpse chi rolling toward him from everywhere, creating the magical great corpse refining formation, which affected his sea of consciousness and his soul. It started to erode his body, preventing him from moving his essence chi. This is the corpse refining 9 revolution formation of the corpse clan. In the antiquity time, the corpse clan had used this formation to refine the living creatures into their fellows and enslave them. The corpse vanishing flame was as calm as a cunning, experienced hunter. After it had arranged everything, it said casually, "I know you have the ice-cold flame. Too bad, you didn't fuse your soul with it. That flame is ranked above me, but it had been damaged badly. It isn't as strong as I am now. Mwahahaha. Let me take you." The corpse vanishing flame laughed evilly. Clusters of corpse clan's secret symbols sparkled in its deep green pupils, then shot out like the starlight toward the corpse slaves out there. After the corpse slaves received the power of the corpse vanishing flame, they were stirred up. Magical soul fluctuations rippled from their tranquil heads as if they had just resurrected from death. This is really shamanistic. The great corpse refining formation was formed by the corpse aura of the 10 corpse slaves. However, when these 10 corpses were awakened, the formation was complete. It then could release the erosive soul aura, covering Shi Yang. Flows of erosive corpse chi entangled him like the rough ropes. The aura of the refining formation affected his sea of consciousness. Corpse chi had entered his sea of consciousness, stirring it up as if it was about to change. In his sea of consciousness, flows of corpse chi started to dissolve his sea of consciousness. It was about to erode Shi Yang's host soul. All of a sudden, the inner world 5 devils stormed out from a deep place in his sea of consciousness. They then furiously swallowed all the corpse chi. Shi Yang's countenance didn't change. Fiery flame burst out from his body. His pores became blazing hot. He looked like an erupting volcano, burning the intruding corpse chi into white smoke. His star martial spirit moved. The Big Dipper God Arrow was activated. The Big Dipper bow was condensed in front of Shi Yang. He installed the Big Dipper arrow, adding the flaming power and his soul consciousness energy. The Big Dipper arrow fired in the void, dragging a really long flaming tail. It crossed the space and exploded directly on Qing Ming's body. Numerous rays of light and the flaming sun power covered Qing Ming's body, and the host of the corpse vanishing flame. The flaming sun and the star energy bursted off instantly, which damaged Qing Ming's body severely. Burn! 5 flames shot out from Shi Yang's fingers. They coiled around Qing Ming immediately. Fiery flames were the nemesis of corpses. Qing Ming's body hadn't been transformed into a complete corpse. Under the furious burning energy of the earth flame and the flaming sun, its cold corpse chi was dissolved quickly. Not long afterward, Qing Ming's body was charred like a burned tree. Seems your lodging process isn't complete yet. And you haven't fused Qing Ming's soul altogether. Well, you're your bad luck though. Shi Yang said nonchalantly, then continued to release his flaming sun energy. Clusters of sunlight fired from between his hands, bombarding Qing Ming. The earth and heaven had a strange phenomenon where the sun, the moon, and the stars all appeared at the same time in the sky. As a warrior with the star martial spirit, he was sensitive enough to see the good opportunity. The absorbing speed of the star, and the sun energy of his martial spirit was more than 10 times faster. Anyway, after the earth and heaven had a strange change, his star martial spirit seemed to change accordingly, which terrified him a lot. In the past, he didn't dare to waste the sun energy in his body. But now he didn't need to care about that anymore. Flaming sun energy balls, as big as the fist, bombarded and exploded in Qing Ming's body successively. Whenever he released the flaming sun energy, his absorbing speed of the flaming sun would accelerate several times. The energy he had consumed was refilled shortly, condensing into the small sun in his heart. In vague sensing, he knew that his star martial spirit had evolved. However, unfortunately, he didn't know how they graded the star martial spirit, nor the difference after it had developed. Roar roar. The 5 devils were roaring, soaring out of his sea of consciousness. They looked like 5 grey tornadoes flying toward the different directions to deal with the corpse slaves that only had their intellect. Shi Yang was struck. He could sense some changes in his sea of consciousness. At the same time, a clear, crisp cracking sound echoed from the blood vein ring on his finger as if some barrier had been broken. Qing Ming was burned into ashes. A gloomy green flame, as big as a palm, flew out from Qing Ming's body. The blood vein ring shot out 5 colored beams, creating a cage imprisoning that green flame, slowly dragging it toward the ring. What's that? No. Nu. The corpse vanishing flame was terrified. It was continually releasing the soul fluctuations in an attempt to escape. However, under the light of the blood vein ring, it couldn't get what it wanted. The ring slowly pulled it away. Shortly, the corpse vanishing flame disappeared into the blood vein ring. Shi Yang was struck hard. He immediately sensed a flow of memory flooding his brain. The corpse god sect. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea were sitting in the middle of a white bone pile, opening their mouths to take in the phosphorescent light from the bones, their faces satisfied. The white bones looked like jade with sparkling phosphorescent light. These bones had dense yin qi. Each of them was giant, around 30 meters long. Obviously, they weren't from humans. No one knew where Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea had picked up those bones. While they were taking in the phosphorescent light, their bodies were exuding a faint white mist, which functioned like a net collecting the yin qi in the sky. More than 1,000 corpse slaves were surrounding Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea. All of them had the solemn countenance as if they all had intelligence. Around 10 corpse slaves stood nearest to Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea. They were wearing snow-white armor, which was made of strange jade. They formed a group. Another group of 10 corpse slaves was discussing with each other, using a strange language. They all had a surprised look. When they looked at Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea, they were full of respect. This group of nearly 1,000 corpse slaves, at the moment the earth and heaven had changed, had gained their wisdom. Their path of life evolution had opened. All of a sudden, Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea seemed to sense something. They both jolted up in the middle of the white bone piles. They frowned, looking in a general direction. It's our benefactor. Yeah, it's him. We should go find him. Okay. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea exchanged some utterances then flew out, darting like lightning toward the burial area where Shi Yang was standing. Many corpse slaves standing near the giant bones pile released their soul fluctuations, taking in the energy from those white bones. While the corpse slaves were taking in the energy from the white bones, the energy in their bodies started to change. Their intelligence was increasing. Those corpse slaves started to understand simple language, and they could talk to each other. It seemed, at the moment that they were awakened, they had turned into a kind of high-grade life form. Chapter 597, Heaven Flame Divine Refining Technique. Chapter 597, Heaven Flame Divine Refining Technique. Heaven Flame Divine Refining Technique. The memory flow from the blood vein ring flooded Shi Yang's brain. Surprisingly, it was an ancient technique, which was to refine the heaven flame. It was called Heaven Flame Divine Refining. Refining heaven flames fused them to make the fire of life. This flame could light up the souls to create the original soul. The Heaven Flame Divine Refining Technique was both profound and mysterious, developed a long, long time ago in the ancient times. Although he had the complete technique guidance, he couldn't learn by himself. He didn't know how to do it. Besides the heaven flames, this technique required 3 primary materials and more than 10 admixtures. He had heard about those dozens of auxiliary materials, but he had never known about the 3 key materials. They were thunder witch wood, blood soul divine water, and 5-element crystal marrow. The electric current of that memory overflowed from the blood vein ring when the barrier inside the ring was broken. It wasn't different from the rampage or death and life seal. The Heaven Flame Divine Refining Technique crossed his head once, then became a soul seal, falling into the deepest place of his memory. Unless his soul was burned, he would never forget it. Although he got the technique to refine them, without the heaven flames, the key materials and the auxiliary materials, and the comprehension of the meanings of the technique, everything would stay only in his thought. Shi Yang evaluated the situation in silence. He couldn't help but shake his head, not wanting to overthink. Only gathering the 9 heaven flames would take an unknown time, and he had never heard about the 3 key materials. All of a sudden, Shi Yang found that the path he'd chosen was an endless way. However, this heaven flame divine refining technique reminded him of one word: original soul. At this moment, he didn't know what the original soul was. From his knowledge, he knew that after the spirit realm warriors had entered the true God realm, they could create the God soul. But he had never heard about the original soul, and whether or not it was related to the God soul. Shi Yang contemplated for a while, then stopped thinking about it. He let his mind sink into the blood vein ring. A dark green flame was confined inside a rainbow halo. Countless red lightning strikes were coiling around that flame, as though they were the chains that tied the flame tightly. Get off me. Damn you, low human. Your living form isn't qualified to coexist with me. The corpse vanishing flame's soul fluctuation was strong. It was clamoring and threatening anxiously with a hot temper. Shi Yang was cold. A flow of his soul formed a phantom to look at the flame in the blood vein ring. You'd better stay here. Wait until you calm down and get contented with your lot, we will then talk. Harumph, my living form's low? I don't know how high you are. Don't babble and lose your face. While he was talking with the green flame, the ice-cold flame and the earth flame were approaching inaudibly from the other corners of the blood vein ring. Then, they stared at the corpse vanishing flame. The blood vein ring was like a boundless world. In this place, it was just a space without any objects. However, if the blood vein ring wanted, it could create different sceneries to achieve its purpose. The blood vein ring had subdued the corpse vanishing flame completely. No matter how much it struggled, the flame could never escape. After the ice-cold flame and the earth flame arrived, they released their unique life fluctuations, as if they were comforting the corpse vanishing flame. The corpse vanishing flame was still raging, its life fluctuation was very fierce. It disdained the ice-cold flame and the earth flame. Shi Yang's soul observed the situation inside the blood vein ring for a while. After he could confirm that the corpse vanishing flame couldn't escape, he retreated his soul. The 5 hazy grey silhouettes zoomed over from a far place, entering his sea of consciousness. The inner world 5 devils were the ones created by the negative energy. Unknowingly, they had a brutal and immense aura of the past, which gave him a strange feeling that they had been living for many years. The 5 devils had their auras increased significantly, and their strange soul fluctuations were stronger. Unfortunately, their wisdom hadn't changed much. In this aspect, the ice-cold flame and the earth flame had a better progress. Shi Yang sensed them for a while. He was sure that the 5 devils had something changed about them. Otherwise, their auras wouldn't become so old and unpredictable. He thought that the 5 devils had acquired some new powers. However, he couldn't find what the change was even after trying to analyze. Qing Ming's body had become hard coke. The corpse slaves around him had lost their vitality, falling on the ground one by one. Even the cold corpse qi on their bodies had dispersed. Shi Yang understood that the inner world 5 devils had taken the feeble souls of these newly awakened corpse slaves. Without the soul, their energy had to scatter. He vaguely felt that after each time the inner world 5 devils absorbed strange energies, they would have some changes. But it wasn't very clear. This time, the 5 devils had an ancient aura, as if they had collected the power from the antiquity time. This surprised him a lot. He only knew that the 5 devils were the copies of his soul, created by refining the negative emotions. They were connected to his soul, and his soul could control them. As the 5 devils got stronger, his host soul would be benefited. However, the 5 devils getting strong enough to oppress his host wasn't something he wanted to see. Thus, he discreetly paid attention. Sensing for a while, he found that the 5 devils couldn't threaten him. Eventually, he calmed down. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. 2 silhouettes with thick corpse qi flew across the clear sky like lightning. Shi Yang released his soul consciousness while smiling and standing at his spot. Not long after that, Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea descended from the sky, standing steadily in front of him. Benefactor. After Corpse C and Corpse Mount arrived, they slightly bent their bodies, putting one hand on their forehead and the other hand on their chest. They greeted him with this unusual etiquette. Shi Yang was surprised, looking at these two Corpse King, his eyes astounded. Corpse Mount and Corpse C were wearing bright silver clothing and accessories. Their garments looked like they were made of bone dust as they were sparkling. Thick gloomy corpse chi exuded from them. The phosphorescent light spots were too many, doing on their clothes like drops of oil. He focused on sensing for a while. His visage changed as he got more solemn. That was the corpse toxin, the intimidating corpse toxin. Just with a drop, the victim's body would be eroded and gradually turned into a corpse. Corpse Mount and Corpse C looked indifferently as if they didn't have emotions. They stood upright naturally but with a gloomy vibe. Their auras were strange. Low-realm warriors standing in front of them would have their souls shivering under their imposing manners. As Shi Yang had space power in his soul consciousness, he could sense the other's soul fluctuations faster and more precisely. He sensed them discreetly, and the surprise he had grew bigger. He almost screamed out. Corpse Mount and Corpse C had a sea of consciousness in their heads with a strange host soul. However, their sea of consciousness wasn't similar to that of humans. The human sea of consciousness looked like a sea, but Corpse Mount and Corpse C had a sea of consciousness that looked like a gravestone. A black gravestone. Each of them had a black tombstone in their heads, covered with magical symbols. Each symbol was taking in a kind of energy from heaven and earth. There was a translucent spot in the middle of the black headstone, where lay Corpse Mount's and Corpse C's soul seal, which was a pale flame. Just like Shi Yang's host soul, it was their root of life. Black tombstone. Pale flame host soul. They were the unique features of the high-grade living beings. Corpse clan. A thought crossed his head. Shi Yang was frightened, as he seemed to get something. Something has changed in your heads. He wasn't so sure, so he tried to probe them. Corpse Mount and Corpse C beamed a bizarre smile, which astounded Shi Yang. Yes, we had the second change when the sun, the moon, and the stars appeared together in the sky. At that moment, we felt something like an inheritance. It was like a shower on our souls. It was the inheritance power of an ancient clan. Although it wasn't complete, it still changed us, Corpse Mount explained. Inheritance. Shi Yang was surprised. He was disbelieving. Where did it come from? I don't know. It seems to come from the heaven and earth energy. I am unable to define it. Corpse Mount was hesitant. Later on, he continued, this is the inheritance of the Corpse clan. It has some secrets and the cultivating techniques of the clan. Creating the life tombstone and the corpse soul are the foundation techniques that the Corpse clan cultivates. Shi Yang was terrified. Our Corpse clan's inheritance seemed to be hidden somewhere between heaven and earth. After the heaven and earth changed, it created the memory fluctuations that each member of the Corpse clan could receive. The stronger the members of the Corpse clan are, the more inheritance we can receive. At least, we can use that memory fluctuation to gain consciousness and become the clansman of the Corpse clan officially. Corpse Mount told Shi Yang the secrets that discolored him. Shi Yang was frightened. Inheritance, the inheritance that descended from the sky, conveying the secrets and the power Upanishads of the Corpse clan that could awaken the corpse slaves and make them the clansmen of the Corpse clan. It could even help corpse kings like Corpse Mount and Corpse C cultivate the life tombstone. What kind of an inheritance was that? Where did it come from? Questions flew around Shi Yang's head as he was scared by the secrets Corpse Mount had told him. Besides the corpse, was there anything else as well? After all, how big were the effects the change of heaven and earth brought this time? Shi Yang suddenly felt insecure. He begrudgingly felt everything was beyond his expectations. Benefactor, we have a place that you may be interested in. Corpse C suddenly said. He didn't stammer anymore. An interesting place? Shi Yang arched his brows, secretly alert. You can come with us. That place is quite strange. Corpse C took the lead and flew towards the center of the Corpse God sect. Benefactor, there's something that could help you, said Corpse Mount. Then he followed Corpse C. Shi Yang was suspicious. He hesitated for a while, then flew towards the general direction of the corpse god sect. Chapter 598, The Gold Giant. Chapter 598, The Gold Giant. The headquarter of the corpse god sect was situated in the cold wind island, which had the cold yin qi and the thick corpse qi, pretty suitable to refine corpses. There was a narrow, long space slit in the southwest corner of the island. Light shot rapidly inside that crack, as an old, decaying aura of the immemorial epoch exuded from it. Not far from the space slit were piles of giant white bones. Those bones looked as if they were made of white jade, crystal clear and as white as snow. Energy fluctuations rippled from them. Hundreds of the newly formed members of the corpse clan were surrounding those bones, taking in the energy from them. They really enjoyed it. Shi Yang glared, but he was jolted with fright inside his heart. The shortest bone was around 10 meters, and the longer ones were dozens of meters long. They looked like beautiful white jade. No one knew how long they had been there, but the energy still remained in the bones. This was unbelievable. The two of us have collected these bones from that place. Corpse Mount pointed at the space crack. There are so many of them inside. All are massive. It took us a long time to mobilize those bones. The energy in these bones is useful to us. We can absorb it directly. Shi Yang gave them a slight nod. Each of those white bones had beams and flows of severe yin aura. The corpse clan members could take it in and convert it into the corpse qi in their bodies. Shi Yang looked at the space crack. He pondered for a while and then asked, "Can we go there directly?" Corpse Mount and Corpse C nodded, then got into the crack right in front of Shi Yang. Shi Yang was amazed. He chuckled and then got in. The sky there was blood red. Many giant skeletons were scattered here and there. This space had many signs of furious battles. A heavy aura pressed down from the sky, as imposing as a mountain. Under this intimidating pressure, Shi Yang couldn't fly up, as if some mysterious force was tying him down. This was a strange space. Giant skeletons were everywhere. Most of them were disintegrated, with many ash-gray spots on them. There were no energy fluctuations coming from them. There were some snow-white bones, which still had feeble energy fluctuations. Walking in between the giant skeletons and looking at the dark red soil, which looked like dried bloodstains under his feet, Shi Yang was more astounded. This was an ancient battlefield. Most skeletons here were from demonic beasts. Shi Yang had walked for around 1,000 meters before he saw a beast skeleton that was more than 500 meters long. It looked like a small mountain. That skeleton wasn't decayed yet. Even though he hadn't approached it, a strange, solemn pressure had slapped his face, which suffocated him. This skeleton has strong energy. Unfortunately, we can't move it. It's too heavy. We have tried to cut it, but we couldn't break it. Corpse Mount smacked his tongue with a begrudging regret. Shi Yang was struck. This skeleton was 500 meters long and around 100 meters tall without flesh and blood. It only had the white bones, but it was intimidatingly giant. When it still had the flesh and everything else, Shi Yang wondered how imposing it used to be. It was definitely a demonic beast skeleton. From this shape, he could confirm this fact. He walked through the skeleton, moving forward. What level of beast it should be to have such a giant body like that? Level 9? Or level 10? Shi Yang was in a confused state of mind. He realized that the situation here was beyond his knowledge. All of a sudden, he stood dazedly at his spot. Looking at the neck of the skeleton, Shi Yang gawked and dropped his jaw, his face disbelieving. The neck of this giant skeleton was as smooth as a mirror. A dragon skull was placed around 10 meters in front of the neck part. It seemed this mountain-like imposing dragon beast was beheaded by a sharp weapon. Shi Yang's eyes were constantly sparkling, and his breathing was getting heavy. He walked around the beast's neck to observe, only to become more surprised. Indeed, this giant dragon beast was beheaded within one strike. Someone had killed it instantly. Coming to this conclusion, he was terrified. He didn't know what kind of formidable battles had taken place here, or what kind of existence it was that could have such earth-shaking powers. God King. Shi Yang beamed a forced smile. Ah. While he was still astounded, the blood vein ring suddenly glowed. A 5-colored light snatched over the neck of that dragon beast. Shi Yang was shocked. He couldn't help but pull himself together and observe. He found a dried puddle on the dark red ground near that neck, as big as a door. It had a purple-red hue, a little bit viscous, with magical energy fluctuation. When the rainbow light of the blood vein ring shone on that puddle, a thought flashed in his head. Blood soul divine water. Broken demon crystal of a level 10 beast. The beast soul and its blood had blended to create this water. It was one of the primary materials to fuse heaven flames. It was a clear thought and Shi Yang immediately got it. He shivered, almost sitting down on the ground. Level 10 beast. Since he had come to this world, the most dangerous demonic beast he had encountered was just a level 8. A level 10 demonic beast was a tremendous living being that could be compared to a god king, the scariest existence he knew. As far as he had known, there was no level 10 beast existing in the Grace mainland. A level 10 beast was beheaded and died here in silence for so many years. At what level was the one who had killed this beast? Shi Yang suddenly felt a chill running down his soul. Looking at this strange space, his hair rose. If there was even one creature still alive, would he, Corpse Mount, and Corpse Sea leave this place alive? If that thing came out of this place and went to the Grace mainland, would it be a great calamity? While he was still making assumptions in fright, the blood vein ring shot out a beam of energy light, which covered the blood soul divine water and stashed it away. The heaven flame divine refining technique required at least 1,000 jin of blood soul divine water. This puddle wasn't more than 10 jin. He still needed a lot to meet the refining requirement. If we continue to go further, there are more skeletons bigger than this one, Corpse Sea muttered. Shi Yang was like he got a bad hit. He trembled, turning around and shouting in a hoarse voice. Bigger! Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea nodded, speaking in unison. Many. Shi Yang was completely scared. Long afterward, he took several deep breaths, pulling himself together. Next, he said with a grimaced expression. Go! Goddamn it! Even if I have to die, we have to go there. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea led the way. There were 5 more skeletons, which were more than 500 meters long. They looked like the small mountains that were situated there forever. One of them was a beast skeleton that was 1,000 meters long, and more than 300 meters tall. Shi Yang gawked, dropping his jaw. Shi Yang found the blood soul divine water near each skeleton. The blood vein ring had collected around 300 jin of the blood soul divine water. This imposing scene had scared Shi Yang several times. Afterward, he went numb. He collected the blood soul divine water along the way, entering deeper into this area. All of a sudden, a big footprint appeared in his line of sight. That footprint was bigger than him. It wasn't a beast's, but a human footprint. This footprint sank 3 meters deep into the ground, which looked too exaggerating. Shi Yang walked over, accumulated energy, and punched the dark red ground fiercely. Bang! The red ground was as hard as iron. His punch just left a small scratch on the ground, and it couldn't make the ground concave. Shi Yang was moved. He immediately knew that the ground under his feet was really rigid. Now, he could imagine the owner of the footprint that sank 3 meters deep to the ground. Ahead. He's ahead of us, Corpse Mount softly reminded him with awe. Ahead. Shi Yang changed his face. He halted, his face solemn. What do you mean? You mean the owner of this footprint? Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea nodded. Shi Yang didn't answer. Light sparkled in his eyes. Long afterward, he asked, dead or alive? Dead, Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea answered in unison. Shi Yang exhaled in relief and then said imposingly, go. We should go check it out. A dead man, no matter how tremendous he was when he was still alive, couldn't give more threats. Shi Yang had crossed some other giant skeletons and collected a small amount of blood soul divine water. He and Corpse Mount, Corpse Sea ultimately arrived at a fractured mountain. That mountain was several thousand meters high, but it was cut off. Its peak was as smooth as jade. Gold light sparkled, releasing waves of heavy aura. Gold light and heavy aura didn't come from this mountain, but from a gold giant sitting neatly on the mountain. Even if this giant were sitting, he was around 10 meters tall. He didn't have blood or flesh, but a golden skeleton. That sparkling gold light came from his bones. It was a complete skeleton. Each bone was as if made of gold jade, with gold energy rippling inside. There was no soul fluctuation coming from this golden giant. A fist-sized gold bead was placed in the golden skull, which was covered with mysterious ancient scriptures. Faint energy waves undulated from the scriptures on the bead. At first glance, that gold giant was covered in a gold halo, as though he was made of gold. A heavy and ancient aura diffused from him. Shi Yang stood at the mountain foot, facing up to look at the giant gold skeleton. He was frightened. The giant clan. Since he had known about the giant clan in the antiquity time, he had imagined how the people of the giant clan would look like. From this skeleton, he could picture what physique and power the giant clan's members had in that epoch. Among the 10 antiquity clans, the giant clan had the strongest physical build. This race had a supernatural innate power. From the day they were born, they would start to train their bodies. They could break a mountain with their bare hands. The giant clan had the smallest population among the 10 antiquity clans, but they were the strongest. This giant skeleton had been sitting here for so many years. His soul soon perished, but his energy still remained in his bones. If he were still alive, how strong he would be was something Shi Yang didn't dare to imagine. Perhaps he had killed the formidable beasts in this space. A thought crossed his head. Shi Yang was struck as he was panicked. The blood soul divine water was condensed from blood and soul of level 10 beasts after 10,000 years of settlement. Being able to kill the level 10 beasts, he should be a God King realm expert. Perhaps, he was at the 2nd or 3rd sky of God King realm. This existence existed only in legends, which people had told each other through generations. They had never appeared in the Grace mainland. Looking at that sparkling gold skeleton and the strange gold bead, he knew he had found a treasure, but he was irritated. He didn't know how to take it. Chapter 599, Wash the Soul. Chapter 599, Wash the Soul. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea stood next to him, looking at the gold giant in silence. They had just received the Corpse clan's inheritance not long ago. Their knowledge of the antiquity time wasn't as much as Shi Yang. They didn't know of the importance behind this all, so they couldn't give him a useful reference. Shi Yang scratched his head agitatedly. He forced a smile, looking at the gold giant in the peak and the mysterious gold bead, while his brain was working hard to find a method to take the bead. Suddenly, he looked at the blood vein ring on his finger, his eyes bright. The blood vein ring could convert the function of the blood soul divine water into waves of memory and impart it to him. Perhaps it could do the same to give him the related description of that gold giant and his bead. With that thought, he quietly rose his arm, pointing the blood vein ring to the gold skeleton. He gathered his soul and sent it to the ring. The blood vein ring stayed quiet for a while. Suddenly, it shot out the rainbow light one more time, covering the gold skeleton and the bead. Golden skeleton. A God King realm member of the giant clan. Golden soul fluid. A rare treasure that can wash the host soul and purify it. It can increase sensibility. It was another wave of memory imprinted in his head to describe the origin and the features of the golden giant and the golden soul fluid. The so-called golden skeleton was the skeleton of the giant clan's members who had reached the God King realm. The bones of their entire body changed into gold color, which came with the greatest prestige power. The golden skeleton was the unique feature of the giant clan's clansmen at God King realm. Experts at this realm, even if they were killed and their flesh was decomposed, their golden skeleton would not be decayed with time. After 10,000 years, it still kept the golden hue with strange energy waves. The golden soul fluid was an essence feature that the soul of the experts of the giant clan at this realm condensed after they were killed. The giant clan in the antiquity time was special. This clan always held up justice. They were all generous and frank. No member of the giant clan had any wild schemes. They were all kind people, born to be good persons. That's why God favored this race. The members of the giant clan could perceive the power of nature easier than the other races. It was a little bit strange here. This clan had no members with a cunning heart. They were all honest. But when it came to the point they needed wisdom the most, the time of comprehending the Upanishad power, they had God's favor with this great superiority. In the antiquity time, the giant clan had just this reward from the high heaven for upholding justice. When the God-King realm experts of the giant clan perished, their soul would vanish into earth and heaven. However, their superiority in learning the power Upanishads could be condensed into a liquid form to be preserved. It was the golden soul fluid. This golden soul fluid was used to purify the host soul. It could help a creature have the magical advantage of comprehending heaven and earth powers of the giant clan, which increased the speed of comprehending the meanings of the power. Even if it were in the antiquity time, the golden soul fluid was the treasure that everybody dreamed of, the thing that they could only meet by chance, the precious treasure of this world. After the memory of the golden skeleton and the golden soul fluid had moved for a while in Shi Yang's head, he got a deep understanding of the giant clan's features. His eyes were bright, looking at the golden skeleton on the mountain peak. His breathing became heavy. Hesitating for a while, he sat down cross-legged. He simply advised corpse mount and corpse see, then tried to use the technique he had just received to collect the golden soul fluid. The golden soul fluid was inside the golden bead, and he couldn't touch it directly with his hand or any treasure. Or else, it would vanish into thin air, returning to the heaven and earth. He could only let his host soul enter the golden bead and wash it there to receive the special ability of the giant clan. Before Shi Yang carried out this operation, he was a little bit hesitant. He then summoned the ghost hunter, the war devil, the holy spirit god, and the king of demonic insects, sending his thought to them before releasing his host soul. The host soul left his sea of consciousness. A phantom of a tiny man slowly flew towards the golden soul fluid on the mountain. The heavy pressure exuding from the golden skeleton seemed not to affect the host soul much. Shi Yang flew up, sensing the immense ancient aura. Shortly, he got to the skull of that golden skeleton. His host soul hovered for a while, then entered the golden bead. A wonderful feeling flooded his soul. His soul felt like it was sublimated. Layers of mist covered him. The golden soul fluid had washed him, and his host soul became crystal clear magically. His sensitivity towards the heaven and earth power became more accurate. His understanding of the power Upanishads seemed to reach the most profound level of the real nature of his powers. The host soul stayed inside the golden bead, and the golden soul fluid soaked it and purified it. Shortly, his host soul received the magical comprehending ability. However, whether it was his space power or the martial techniques, he needed a special situation to trigger them, which would give him an opportunity for a new time of comprehension. At this moment, the golden soul fluid had given him a magical comprehending ability, but he didn't have a chance to try it. Shi Yang felt very irritated. The magical ability the golden soul fluid had given him had a limit. If it continued this way, he would be wasting his time and the effect of the golden soul fluid. The most important thing was that once the host soul got in there, unless the golden soul fluid was consumed completely, it couldn't get out easily. He had to find something to comprehend. All of a sudden, he remembered the blacksmith's secret of success. In the wonderful space inside the blacksmith's secret of success, there were many complex and profound formations, which hid the deep meanings of refining and forging weapons. After he had spent a long time there, he could perceive only the teleportation formation. Except for that, he didn't dare to try the other great refining treasure formations. However, the situation he was in now was unique. If he couldn't find something to comprehend, he would waste the golden soul fluid for nothing. He didn't hesitate at all. He condensed a flow of soul consciousness, directly entering the blacksmith's secrets of success. It was inexplicably magical. The ancient formations he found so mysterious and complicated before suddenly became explicit. Spending a little time in an exquisite formation, he could get the basic features, structure, and the principles of the energy movement in that formation. Abruptly, he found that the mysterious formations in the blacksmith's secrets of success were the application of special power Upanishads. The refining process was to use the materials to carve the nature of a kind of force in earth and heaven and to perform the original power of that force. He was overjoyed, his soul shivered as if he had found a treasure. He focused wholeheartedly, as though each formation was a good dish for his soul which he was enjoying. There were dozens of formations in the blacksmith's secrets of success. Each formation could be carved on a secret treasure to enhance its power. Some formations could gather heaven and earth spiritual chi, while the others could use wind, lightning, or thunder to attack. There were also formations that could create illusions which people couldn't escape. Besides countless formations, there were hundreds of forging methods with thousands of unique written techniques. Each technique could enhance the formation or be used during the refining process to maximize the treasure's ability. Secret treasures were classified into 5 grades, including mortal, mystery, spirit, sacred, and divine. Each grade had other different 7 ranks. The blacksmith's secret of success didn't have the techniques to refine mortal, mystery, and spirit grades treasures. It just had a simple description of these basic techniques. The techniques that were focused were to refine and forge sacred grade and divine grade secret treasures. It explained clearly how to collect souls, and how to add admixture to the treasures. It even had the technique to cultivate spirit and soul. The ranks of sacred grade and divine grade were introduced pretty clear. It had a complete description of the difference between different ranks and grades of secret treasures, and even the simple tricks to differentiate the sacred grade treasures and the divine grade treasures. This book contained dozens of formations, hundreds of forging and refining methods, more than 10,000 written techniques, grades of secret treasures, different heating levels of flame used, small details in refining treasures, and what to pay attention to during a refining and forging process, etc. All the knowledge which was related to a whole life of cultivation of a blacksmith was presented in this Blacksmith's Secrets of Success. At this moment, Shiyang finally understood that the old book of Blacksmith's Secrets of Success he had taken from a foreign land was the whole life essence of a divine-grade blacksmith. He didn't know how time flew when he was in the book. He had used the golden soul fluid to sink into the ocean of knowledge and comprehended the Upanishads of refining. He had made the refining methods into the deep marks in his head. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The Blacksmith's Secrets of Success turned into smoke and dispersed, leaving no trace. After a long while, Shiyang's host soul flew out of the golden bead, returning to his body. He was happy. Looking at the Blacksmith's Secrets of Success vanish, he didn't feel painful or sorrowful. He had a good grasp of the refining Upanishads of the Blacksmith's Secrets of Success. Of course, he understood that this book was a special treasure. It had demonstrated everything as a real space, which joined all sorts of formations. When someone had experienced every formation from the beginning to the end, the Blacksmith's Secrets of Success would disappear. The Blacksmith's Secrets of Success was the inheritance of a divine-grade blacksmith, who had recorded his whole life experience of refining and forging secret treasures. When someone had the inheritance, the Blacksmith's Secrets of Success didn't need to exist anymore. The golden bead inside the skull of the golden skeleton had turned into a dark brown hue, and the golden soul fluid was drained. Although Shiyang had never forged a weapon, thanks to the Blacksmith's Secrets of Success, he was now a profound blacksmith, even more excellent than Ku Die's team in the Precious Tool Valley. The inheritance that he got was a true textbook from a divine-grade blacksmith. If he could gather enough materials, he could even refine divine weapons. His vision had been widened after this experience. Looking at the beast skeletons scattered everywhere in this space, his breathing became short and heavy, while his eyes brightened. There were treasures everywhere. Chapter 600, Golden Marrow. Chapter 600, Golden Marrow. Scattered everywhere in this strange place were skeletons of formidable beasts. Each snow-white bone contained fluctuations of energy. Those bones could become the main material of secret treasures. He just needed to find some auxiliary materials and he could refine the treasures. Shiyang's eyes brightened as he was looking at so many giant beast skeletons from afar. Smile filled his face. But the thing that made him more joyful was the golden marrow inside the golden skeleton of the giant. The golden marrow of the golden skeleton was the best potion to treat the body. Refining the golden marrow and then soaked in that liquid, a warrior could have the tenacious skeleton of the golden giant, which was as hard as iron or rock. The reason why the golden skeleton had the golden hue was because of the golden marrow. However, it was mysteriously difficult to refine the golden marrow. And it required a blazing flame at the same time. Shi Yang had the earth flame, which was pretty suitable to refine the golden marrow from the bones. He determined the method, then notified the war devil and the ghost hunter. He asked Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea to stay while he was going to that broken mountain alone. The soul of the golden skeleton on the mountain had scattered, but the pressure it released was still heavy. He had to resist that pressure continually along the way to the mountain peak. When he had reached the foot of the skeleton, he realized he was so small. Compared to this giant man sitting neatly there, he was just like a reptile. Shi Yang squinted to observe. He hauled out the sky destroyer and dug a ditch around the golden skeleton. The rock of this mountain was hard. When his divine sword was working on it, clinks echoed. Shortly, a round ditch was formed with his effort under the feet of the golden skeleton. Closing his eyes and sensing the energy fluctuations inside the golden skeleton, Shi Yang was cheered up, his face joyful. Shi Yang summoned the earth flame and pointed at the golden skeleton, sending it his thought. Cover him. Burn him slowly to stimulate the golden marrow in his bones, then guide it to this ditch. Okay. The earth flame replied. Next, it turned into many scarlet scorching flames like clouds tinged by the setting sun, enveloping that giant golden skeleton. To the living beings like the earth flame, big volume didn't mean strong power. Their flame forms could resize according to the situation, but their power remained unchanged. The earth flame's pure core power was a flame that was as big as a fist. However, if it wanted to release a furious fire, it could always expand its pure flame to a bigger and hotter form. The scarlet flames looked like rolling lava. It had covered the entire golden skeleton with an intense heating aura. Shi Yang put on a serious expression as he was gathering the power in his body. He was making different magical hand seals, which then turned into streaks of light, hitting on the golden skeleton. To extract the golden marrow, besides the heaven flame, he needed to use a special method to soften the golden bones. If he hadn't had the wisdom of that divine-grade blacksmith, he would never have reached this step. However, it was a piece of cake to him at this moment. Thousands of strange symbols and scriptures turned into differently patterned halos, flying towards the golden skeleton. After 3 days, a gold mist started to exude from the golden skeleton. Gold fluid began to move inside the bones and seep through the cracks, pouring into the ditch Shi Yang had dug beforehand. The first drop of bright gold liquid fell into the ditch, carrying strange, magical energy fluctuations with it. The strange gold raindrop fell, and the ditch seemed like it was drilled through, revealing a small bored hole. Shi Yang's eyes brightened, and the smile on his face widened. He put forth his efforts to strike more techniques. A sole drop of the golden marrow could pierce through such rigid ground. Shi Yang immediately knew that the power of the golden marrow in this giant's golden skeleton was plenty. The earth flame was constantly increasing its heating flame. With his assistance, it was burning the golden skeleton. Drops of golden marrow seeped through the bone cracks unceasingly, falling into the ditch. Not long afterward, a faint gold stream appeared in that ditch. At the same time, due to losing the golden marrow, the radiant golden bones gradually turned white-gray with dark spots. They seemed to be decaying quickly. The energy of the golden marrow had maintained the glorious golden hue of the skeleton. Without the golden marrow, the skeleton of a member of the giant clan would reveal its original shape. Shi Yang watched the golden marrow drops falling into the ditch with bright eyes, his heart dancing with joy. Eventually, when all the golden marrow was refined from the skeleton of a member of the giant clan, the skeleton turned into a giant white-gray skeleton. The heavy pressure was gone. The skeleton sat there with a decayed posture, as if it was about to collapse at any minute. Shi Yang watched it for a while. He frowned, then urged his energy to create a massive hand, lifting the white-gray skeleton and taking it to the mountain foot. After it lost the golden marrow, the skeleton became lighter, so it didn't take much of his energy. He used his mind to control the divine sword to dig a big grave near the mountain. He put this rusty skeleton into the tomb. Finally, this man could rest in peace. Since he had taken the golden soul fluid and the golden marrow from this skeleton, he cherished and was thankful for that. That's why he buried it. After Shi Yang had arranged the grave properly, he smiled, walking into that ditch which was filled with golden marrow. He felt like he had fallen into a lava pond. The scorching gold energy pierced his skin like a sharp weapon. Shi Yang wasn't surprised. He focused and relaxed his spirit. His pores opened to absorb the golden marrow into his body. The golden marrow entered his pores, murmuring in his bones. The blazing fluid was burning his bones like a fiery fire, causing him an extreme pain. He had to get through this phase. If he wanted to absorb the golden marrow into his entire body, he had to endure this pain. Shi Yang understood that, so he had just clenched his teeth and endured. He was taking in more golden marrow through his pores, as the amount of the liquid in the ditch reduced. Just like when he had entered this continent, he had determinedly walked into the blood pond, using the blood pond to transform. A giant gold pupa enveloped him shortly. Now, he looked like a giant gold beetle which was about to eclose. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea looked up from the mountain foot. Later on, the two new members of the Corpse clan finally recognized something. They hurried to get to the mountain peak and sank into that gold ditch. At this moment, the amount of the golden marrow left wasn't much. They couldn't do anything more than laying down and rolling to get the golden marrow all over their bodies, enjoying it a lot. Chapter 601, Refining Secret Treasures. Chapter 601, Refining Secret Treasures. __. The color of the thick golden shell on Shi Yang's body faded away, and its light also dimmed out. Strange energy fluctuations rippled fiercely from the body covered in the golden shell. From time to time, they became more turbulent. Boom! The hard gold shell fragmented into small pieces, just like a torn sheet of fabric. It revealed Shi Yang, with the gold color body inside as if he were wearing glittering gold clothes, which looked both beautiful and dazzling. While squinting, Shi Yang was really joyful. Gradually, he laughed out loud. He used the soul consciousness to check his body. His bones were now golden, which were refined by the golden marrow, exactly the same as the golden skeleton. Not only that, the golden marrow had flooded his flesh and vessels, turning into a strange gold energy that blended into his 5 main internal organs and the great 8 meridians to nurture his body. The reason why his body had the golden hue was because of the petrification martial spirit. After the marrow washing process, Shi Yang's petrification martial spirit had evolved one more time. Now, it was gold, and not red anymore. In the Shi family, the petrification martial spirit had 4 levels. In each level, the skin color would be different: ash gray, dark brown, yellowish green, and purple red. Before that, when his martial spirit had changed, he had got the purple red hue, which was considered entering the peak of the Shi family's petrification martial spirit. He thought that it was the final form, and his body wouldn't change furthermore. However, he recognized that he was wrong, as his petrification martial spirit had entered another level after the golden marrow washing and nurturing process. Now, his body was gold. Closing his eyes, Shi Yang felt the changes of his body in silence. He didn't urge his thought, just relaxed his mind. The color of his body faded, returning to the original skin color. However, when his nerves got tense, or his fighting will was triggered, his body, including blood and flesh, would turn gold. Each muscle of his would be filled with an immense life power. Each meridian would become strangely tenacious, which would accelerate the moving speed of essence chi. The muscles of his entire body would release a torrential gold energy, which was sharply irreversible. The golden body that was washed and refined by the golden marrow obviously had a part of the golden giant's energy. Shi Yang laughed contentedly as he was overjoyed. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea slowly got up from the ditch. Their whole bodies glistered with a golden hue. They had collected all the left golden marrow in the ditch. Now, they were using the secret techniques of the Corpse clan to rebuild their bones. Members of the Corpse clan understood how to use the 5 elements powers well. After Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea had taken the golden marrow of the golden giant, their physical strength had increased tremendously. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea were sparkling with a golden hue. At the same time, their eyes showed an imposing and solemn divine aura. This surprised Shi Yang a lot. They were the clansmen of the Corpse clan, but they had the aura that only the golden giant had after taking in the golden marrow. It made them truly extraordinary. Boundless prospects. Shi Yang was shocked discreetly, giving them a compliment. He knew the two of them had received the Corpse clan's inheritance. In the future, their world would be much wider. His strange living beings, including the war devil, the ghost hunter, the king of demonic insects, and the devouring gold silkworm, all disappeared except for the war devil. While frowning, Shi Yang checked the mountain. He felt a greater surprise. Not long after that, his eyes showed his joy. The ghost hunter, the king of demonic insects, and the devouring gold silkworm were strange demonic beasts. The Holy Spirit God wasn't a beast, but it had a body. To these strange creatures, the beast skeletons in this space were the best nutrients. When demonic beasts reached level 9, even if it had died for 10,000 years and its body was all decayed, its energy still remained in the bones. Although it was feeble, this energy was scattering from time to time. If it were too long ago, this sort of energy would drain up. However, the time of death of these skeletons in this space wasn't too long. Their bones still kept some energy. Furthermore, there were level 10 beasts here. At this level, 10,000 years wasn't enough to disperse the energy in the bones. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea had taken the bones here to absorb the energy from them. The ghost hunter, king of demonic insects, devouring gold silkworm, and the Holy Spirit God were doing the same. The four strange creatures scattered around. They found a giant beast skeleton each and took in the energy using different methods. The white jade, translucent bones were turning grey, as the energy inside was taken. After they had drained the energy out, those bones would turn into grey ashes immediately. It seemed these four had started a long time ago. From the mountain, he could see 4 skeletons, which were hundreds of meters tall, about to be depleted. At this speed, not long after that, those skeletons would become scraps, and they would have nothing else of value. After watching for a while, Shi Yang contemplated and then plunged away from the mountain peak. He flew towards the dragon-shaped beast skeleton, the one that the 4 strange living beings hadn't laid their eyes on. This skeleton was completely preserved. It was still as beautiful as a masterpiece of white jade, shining with silver rays. Swoosh! The earth flame shot out from his palm, moving according to his thought. It fiercely tangled with the giant skeleton. The storage ring flashed, as auxiliary materials flew out. Enhanced with different techniques, they were poured into the skeleton and melted together with the bones under the heat of the earth flame. Bone refining technique was a popular refining treasure method. It used the good quality bones to be the main material. This technique didn't change the structure of the primary material, but purified it with the fiery flame. Then, the auxiliary materials were used to enhance the toughness and hardness of the bones, which directly turned the bones into a secret treasure. Bone refining technique wouldn't change the original shape of the main material. The blacksmith only needed to carve the formation to enhance the firmness, and create a yin and yang generating formation to maintain and generate the energy of the bones. This step completed the treasure. This refining method wasn't complicated, but it had a high requirement of the main materials. If the key material wasn't of good quality, even if the blacksmith added more auxiliary substances, he couldn't carve the formation. That dragon skeleton was undoubtedly that of a level 10 beast. After so many years, it was still white as jade, even though the energy was worn out. This showed that the beast must have been a formidable one when it was still alive. The skeleton of a level 10 beast was the absolutely perfect main material. With the bone refining technique as the basis, Shi Yang was making many complex and ever-changing hand seals. Written charms were portrayed around that skeleton. Crack, crack, crack. Under the heat of the earth flame, the skeleton fractured gradually. Contaminants were separated. The skeleton started to shrink. The energy inside the bones started to flow out from the 3 thigh bones, which were around hundreds of meters long. Gathering and condensing the energy of the bones to the essence was the feature of the bone refining technique. He had condensed the energy of the 700 meters tall dragon skeleton using the earth flame and the auxiliary materials into 3 giant thigh bones. After losing the energy, under the heat of the earth flame, the skeleton was burned into ashes, scattering away. Shi Yang squinted, as a light flashed in his eyes. His soul consciousness moved like a saber, carving the formation on the 3 massive thigh bones. His hands were moving, forming numerous hand seals. Long afterward, the 100-meter tall thigh bones were shrunk to 3 meters. They looked like 3 spears with many complicated and mysterious scriptures covering the jade-like bone, which made the spears more exquisite, splendid, and pretty sharp. He could see the delicate energy fibers perfectly moving inside the 3 long spears following the formations carved on them. Shi Yang suddenly sat down neatly. His finger was placed on his glabella. The host soul flew out, entering the spears directly to mark his soul seal into the 3 spears. This helped him manipulate the spears as he pleased. The 3 bones from the level 10 beast were as sharp as lightning strikes. When his mind flickered, they flew and drew sharp, cold curves in the air, which could frighten people easily. Unfortunately, the beast soul had long scattered. He couldn't take the soul to add into these bone thorns to give them intelligence. Without intelligence, the bone thorn couldn't become a divine grade treasure. At rank 3, it was good enough. 3 flows of his soul consciousness poured into the bone thorns as Shi Yang urged his soul consciousness with space power. The bone thorns disappeared instantly. After 15 minutes, they could reappear 1,000 miles away, as if they could teleport in just a blink. Shi Yang cracked a smile and nodded silently. "Come back," he shouted. The 3 bones tore the space as rapidly as they appeared abruptly at the time he stopped thinking. His finger pointed at the void, and the 3 bones turned into 3 white beams of light, disappearing into his storage ring. They became the first secret treasures that he had ever made. And they were sacred grade treasures. At this moment, he got to know that warriors in antiquity time all knew how to refine and forge weapons. God Realm warriors could even use their host soul as the mediator to refine the divine grade weapon of their lives. The life weapon and its master were interlinked mentally, and its power would be tremendous. If the life weapon were damaged, the master would be wounded the same. However, the life weapon brought up a great advantage. Together with the master's increasing realm, it could also improve its quality and power. During that epoch, the life weapon was the most precious asset of a warrior, even more important than his wife. The 3 bone thorns that he had created using the bone refining technique weren't divine weapons, and they couldn't be his life divine weapons. Also, their power didn't reach that level, and they wouldn't bind with him either. He put the 3 bone thorns away and took another round around this space. However, he couldn't find more suitable materials. Energy in the skeletons of some level 7 or level 8 demonic beasts was almost drained off. They didn't have a high value to him. The ghost hunter, king of demonic insects, the devouring gold silkworm, and the Holy Spirit god had occupied the valuable skeletons, absorbing the energy with joy. While he was waiting begrudgingly, Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea descended from the broken mountain. The 2 of them said before they had even reached near him, "Somebody is breaking into our territory." Chapter 602, Ghost Hunter Breaks Through. Chapter 602, Ghost Hunter Breaks Through. Breaking in your territory? Out there? Shi Yang was surprised. He knew that Corpse Mount and Corpse could use their souls to contact the members of the Corpse clan out there and report the situation quickly. Anyway, at this time, the forces in the Endless Sea were all well behaved, and Qingming was dead. Logically, there shouldn't be anyone who dared to provoke the Cold Wind Island. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea nodded, as a malicious light sparkled in their deep green eyes. Obviously, they were enraged. The essence of the golden marrow had absorbed into their bones, which made these 2 members of the Corpse clan extremely robust and tenacious. Perhaps, when they joined hands, even a 3rd sky of Spirit Realm warrior couldn't defeat them. "We should check it out," Shi Yang pondered. At first, he sent his thought to the ghost hunter, the devouring gold silkworm, and king of demonic insects, to ask them to stay here and absorb more energy from the skeletons. Then, he left with the war devil. The sharp wind howled through the cold wind island. Corpses piled up like mountain ranges. Many clansmen of the Corpse Clan, who obviously had wisdom, had the emotional light that only high-grade races could have in their eyes. 2 members of the Corpse Clan wearing ash-grey armor came out from the crowd. They came and greeted Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea with great respect. Then, they used their own language to report Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea. The Cow family, the ever-pale face of Corpse Mount, was surprised for a while. He looked at the southwest direction of the cold wind island. "Let's go there and check." Shi Yang didn't have any opinion, and he was suspicious too. He had no clue why members of the Cow family came here. When Shi Yang, Corpse Mount, and Corpse Sea stood firmly on a burial area in the southwest of the cold wind island, they had their faces changed as their fright grew bigger in their hearts. Cao Qiu Dao, Cao Ji Lan, Queen of Heaven Fan Xiong Yun, Man Ji Yu. Many outstanding warriors of the Tutor Sea appeared together at this burial area. However, their distressed appearances made Shi Yang curious. Even Cao Qiu Dao looked a bit miserable, as if he had fought with a big enemy. Man Ji Yu and Fan Xiong Yun had a glum expression. There was no bright light in their eyes, and they looked miserable. Shi Yang didn't know what they had suffered. After they saw Shi Yang, they were even more shocked than him. All of them screamed in awe. Cao Zilan's beautiful eyes brightened, but then dimmed out as if she had remembered something, her face longing. Cao Qiu Dao was frank. He took a deep breath, frowned, then said solemnly, "We just passed by, and we wanted to notify you that you should leave. Currently, the Endless Sea." "What did you say?" Shi Yang shuddered. He knew something earth-shaken had happened. What happened? Dark clans hotshots from the 7-layered underworld and the demon area have invaded the Endless Sea again. Besides your Kiara Sea, human forces in the other seas have been invaded. Cao Qiu Dao was bitter. His complexion was lonely and grim. He shook his head and then sighed. Shi Yang discolored as he shouted, "How could it be? You've been here for more than 1 year. Of course, you didn't know the situation out there." Cao Qiu Dao was quite sad. 1 year ago, you killed Qing Ming. Then, you entered the cold wind island. During 1 year, storms have raged over the Endless Sea again. The Dark Clan and the Demon Clan have invaded us one more time. They are stronger than the previous time. In the Endless Sea, no one can resist them. No one can resist them? Even you? Shi Yang was frightened. Whether they are the Dark Clan or the Demon Clan, they all have true God Realm experts. You say if I can deal with them or not. Cao Qiu Dao grimaced. The Tutor Sea's over. The Yin-Yang Fairyland and the desolate barbarian school are almost eradicated. Except for us here, the members of the Cow family have all perished. I basically don't have the power to overturn this. Cao Zilan's pretty face was covered with tears. She trembled gently as she was utterly heartbroken. The Queen of Heaven Fan Xiong Yun, who was always charming, was now paled with grief. She clenched her teeth as her eyes were filled with a sinister light. Man Gu's expression was wild and brutal, as though he was an imprisoned beast who wanted to bite everybody. His eyes were congested. Shi Yang was startled. He didn't realize that he had spent over 1 year in that strange space with the beast skeletons. The Endless Sea had such a big change, which was beyond his estimation. It was his luck that he had completed the teleport connecting the Yang family and the Radiant God cult. This made him relax his tense nerves a little bit. He knew that with the teleportation formation, when the Yang family sensed the situation wasn't going well, they would mobilize the core generation to the Radiant God cult in the Divine Great Land. The Radiant God cult had Yun Hao, a true God Realm warrior, to guard the place. The 7 old factions in the Divine Great Land all had such intimidating existences, they even had the divine weapons. When these strong forces joined hands, the Divine Great Land shouldn't meet unexpected things shortly. As long as the Yang family was safe, he didn't need to be worried much. I haven't been out for 1 year, so I'm not clear about the whole picture of the Endless Sea. Precursor Cow, could you please explain in detail? He didn't have a good feeling towards Cao Qiu Dao. This old man was sinister, and the members of the Cao family had aimed at him many times. Cao Zhilan's heart was as menacing as a viper. He had received a lot of bitter fruits from them. Today, seeing their misfortune, Shi Yang felt a little bit pleased. All right, Cao Qiu Dao didn't hesitate and frankly told him what had happened during this year in detail. Due to the great change in the world, the heaven gates connected the seven-layered underworld and the fourth demon area were broken. People from the three areas could enter the other area through the space channel. When it first happened, warriors of the Endless Sea thought it was a lucky chance. They had organized many troops to get into the two other worlds to collect cultivating materials. However, they knew they were wrong shortly. They found that the fourth demon area had demon clan's hotshot, who was stronger than the spirit realm. They discovered that Abi, Dark Sky, and Hades, the three great Yama kings, had all entered the true god realm. When their news reached the Endless Sea, all forces there were startled. However, the other didn't wait for them to find a countermeasure. Hotshots of the Dark Clan led by Abi, Dark Sky, and Hades descended on the Endless Sea for the second time. Abi, Hades, and Dark Sky, the three Yama kings had reached the true god realm. In the Endless Sea, no one could resist them. Each of the three great Yama kings was in charge of one sea. They carried out invasion the Tutor Sea, the Yuan Luo Sea, and the Darkwater territory. People in these three sea areas had fallen into misery. Human warriors were almost uprooted. At the same time, experts of the Demon Clan had also entered the Kiara Sea and the Vault of Heaven Sea. The Yang family had soon prepared. They sent their core disciples away. The Yang family didn't suffer a significant loss. Tang Yuan Nan of the Three Gods sect had received the request from Yang Tian Emperor, so he had moved his disciples to the Radiant God cult before. All had escaped this calamity. However, because the Martial Spirit Palace and the Penglai Holy Land in the Vault of Heaven Sea didn't have the teleport formation to leave, they no longer existed. Yang Yi Tian, the master of the Spirit Marshal, who was at the third sky of Spirit Realm, was killed by a true God Realm expert of the Demon Clan. The Penglai Holy Land was eradicated. It was just 1 year, but the human forces around the Endless Sea were all crushed, just like people breaking dried branches. Besides the Yang family and the Three Gods sect, almost all forces were destroyed. Cao Qiu Dao's force was at the end of the escape road. Since they knew the Corpse God sect had a special space slit, they ran to this place to find shelter in that space slit. They hoped to escape the pursuit of Yama King Hades, who was in charge of the Tutor Sea. It has not been easy for you to survive until now, Shi Yang mused for a while. He smiled, but his eyes didn't smile. Too bad, your fortune isn't good enough. Why do you say that? Cao Qiu Dao was trembling, but he was still calm. The area that space slit leads to isn't big enough. Moreover, it's a dead area. You can't go there. Shi Yang laughed evilly. In other words, if you get there, you will be like a fish in the tank. You will never have the second chance to run away. At this point, those human experts all felt disappointed. They sighed as they thought that their lives had come to an end. We still want to go there and check. Cao Qiu Dao was persistent. Shi Yang smiled and shook his head. I'm sorry. This place doesn't belong to you guys. You should return to where you came from. Cao Qiu Dao was enraged. Shi Yang, I don't want to mess with you. We want to live. Don't force me. Cao Qiu Dao, honestly, you don't have the power that I have to be afraid of. Shi Yang didn't take notice of Cao Qiu Dao's threat. He smiled faintly, calling the ghost hunter, the devouring gold silkworm, the king of demonic insects, and the Holy Spirit God. While waiting for them, he said neither slowly nor fast. If you want to die, actually, you don't need to wait for Yama King Hades. I can help you with it. Cao Qiu Dao turned his head. With only one glance, his face turned the color of the soil. Roar. A raging roar soared up into the sky from the ghost hunter. Its murderous, ruthless aura had triggered the energy of earth and heaven. Clusters of cloud that were filled with a murderous aura gathered above the cold wind island, covering the light from the sun, moon, and stars. It created a tremendous pressure on everybody. Low-realm warriors like Cao Ziland paled. They were shivering, as a helpless feeling rose from deep inside their souls. Even Cao Qiu Dao was frightened, his eyes dull. Shi Yang was amazed, too. He looked at the ghost hunter and found that this monster had a halo that looked like silvery liquid lingering on its body. On its fierce face, an incomparably evil red pair of eyes sparkled with brutal, murderous intents. The aura of the ghost hunter was like a range of mountains that people couldn't reach, giving people an inexplicable subduing feeling that could even oppress the souls. Level 9 Beast. At first glance, Shi Yang knew that the ghost hunter had broken through to a brand new realm. Master, I'm Ghost Hunter. Do you need me to kill all of them? The ghost hunter sauntered towards him. Its ferocious face slowly changed, while the thorns had retreated into its body. He still strolled towards Shi Yang. However, before he'd reached him, he had turned into a young man with a garnet pair of eyes. His bearing was strange and evil. The physique of this young man was sharp and truncate. His delicate, handsome face could dazzle many women. Although he had attractive features outlined by silver clothes, he still had a faint scent of blood. Shi Yang was stunned like a wooden rooster. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.